we will start with our traditional 15-minute open period for public comment, if anybody has anything they would like to comment. Otherwise, agenda items, we typically have some discussion as we go. Hearing none, we'll move on. New business.
I was waiting for Dennis to say something. I thought he might be here for that reason. And I was waiting for him. So I'd like to say something if I may.
Sure.
Good. Well, I've come here with a little bit of a heavy heart, asking for this. However, other citizens have contacted me, and they also have heavy hearts asking for this. And we would like the board to be reorganized again, quickly. And we want Maureen Marshall to be the chairman. We want Greg O'Sullivan not to be the chairman. And the reason why we want this change is the following reason. People think you are arrogant, big mouth, incompetent, rude, sociopathic, a bully, and we don't want you to be the king. So we want reorganization. We think you've made big mistakes all the way up, and we want new direction. And if we don't get it this way, by being nice, then
Sam, thank you for participation. I do limit public comments to one. I limit them.
That's one of the reasons why.
I limit them.
One of the reasons why people
Sam,
want you off.
I limit the public comment period to 1 minute, and if you've gone over your time, I'm going to ask you to be quiet.
That's one of the reasons why
Sam,
people want you to get off your seat.
You're disrupting this meeting for the last time.
That's one of the reasons why.
If you do not stop talking, Mr. Lipson, I will have you removed from the meeting.
Go right ahead. You have me removed. Make
All
a
right.
phone call right now and have me removed.
I would like you to discontinue this course,
Because
and we're going to move on.
you always talk about
The
transparency.
first topic
You
tonight,
talk about transparency, yet
Sam,
there's none.
Sam, I'd like you to leave my meeting, please.
I'm not leaving.
Leave the meeting, please.
I'm not leaving.
All right. Please note this in the record, the minutes, that I've asked Mr. Lipson to leave. I've asked him to stop speaking out of turn at the meeting he's asked to
Well,
leave.
I was speaking in my 15 minutes of speech.
First topic is the CDBG discussion with CMRPC. So, Jessica, where do we stand with that?
We actually have Mr. Chris Dumpy here to make a short presentation to the board.
Sure, I'm here to, first of all, Christopher Dumpy, Central Mass
welcome.
Regional Planning Commission. I apologize, I was unaware of the National Protection Zoning thing.
Oh.
There are many, many planners in our office.
You're welcome to come up front if you want. There's microphones up here so the audience can hear you better.
Okay, fine.
Well, there's a comfy chair, too.
Sorry, procedural.
Well, a lot of times people have trouble hearing us. We have
Please, I
microphone
meant
issues,
no
so-
disrespect.
No, no
I just,
problem.
I didn't,
That's part of my introduction.
it was just
so-
on the website, so.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm not fully indoctrinated to our website because I'm relatively new with
Okay.
CMRPC. I've been
I'm
here
relatively new here.
For 3 months now.
Okay.
But prior to CMRPC, I'm a 22-year planner at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, with the focus being the development and administration of the Community Development Block Grant Program. So in the past years, I've worked with communities such as Ware, Warren, Hardwick, and so on and so forth, all throughout the Quabog Hills region.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a vast experience in this particular program, developing it and managing it. And
It sounds like an exciting program. I mean, it's,
Yeah, it can be, you know,
for our town, it's going to have some good use.
For Barre, unfortunately, I'm going to start proposing a modest introduction into the CDBG program. So the CDBG program is about 50 years old now. It's a federal program provided by HUD. So every year HUD has to go before Congress and make a pitch for appropriation. Once the appropriation's put in place, the dollars are first allocated to entitlement cities. Mostly cities of 50,000 people or more, and they get monies automatic by a formula as determined by HUD. Okay, and what's left goes to the states, and in this case, it's the Department of Housing and Community Development, and they allow smaller cities and towns to apply competitively. And that's where me and our expertise comes in terms of the development, the grant applications, the program management, and so forth. So the state entity, in this case, is the Department of Housing and Community Development. So annually, they publish what the rules are for the program, and then they invite competitive applications from the small cities and towns. This year's application is due on September 10th, okay? And communities start out with what they call a needs score. That kind of determines how competitive a community is going to be statewide through this application process. Communities are assigned a number anywhere between 1 and 10. Okay, if you're a 10, you have a very high competitive advantage.
What sort of needs are they basing that on?
Mostly low to moderate income persons that live in your community. Okay, so Barre comes in at a 6. So right off the bat, coming in at a little bit of a disadvantage to other communities, like Ware, as an example, was a 9 or a 10. It's the same thing for.
Can you tell me what that, the numbers mean and how many, what's the,
Yeah, so the
range?
DHCD develops a matrix statewide for every community that is eligible to apply for the CDBG program through the state small cities program, okay? And they assign it, like I said, this community-wide needs score that is solely, I said largely, but solely based on the population of low to moderate income persons. So I'm going to step back. The national objective for the CDBG program is one of 3 criteria. 1, primary benefit to low and moderate income persons. 2, to rectify issues of slum and blight. And 3, urgent need. So urgent need is like if a catastrophic event, like a tornado came through and there's no other funding sources whatsoever, there's a possibility of using CDBG. It very rarely happens through this state program. Sometimes entitlement cities get to use it and whatnot, but
Perhaps something like New Orleans when they had the horrible
yeah,
floods and
exactly.
things
So
like
they
that.
were able to tap into it,
Right.
But for this program, competitive program through the state, hardly ever happens, okay? So slum and blight, for some communities that want a designated area that they've determined to be blighted, you apply for that designation, and that would allow for projects within that designated area. Okay, but largely, by and large, the program is for the primary benefit of low and moderate income persons.
so is it basically, the primary driver here is per capita income?
Low and moderate income based on.
Population density, or how do they do that?
What's low and
Okay.
moderate
All
income?
right, so specifically, it means 80% of median income, okay? And,
Median local,
Compared to
median
the
state, median
statewide
federal?
average? Or-
no, per metro area, as published by HUD. So.
So where the Worcester area or the Boston metro, how was that?
So for Barre, you're in the Worcester metro, and for a household of 1, it's $55,350 of less. For a household of 2, it's $63,250 and less, and so on and
So
so
that's
forth.
the low income threshold, or that's
the
where
low income
80% of
threshold.
that is considered?
We'd like to say low and moderate income
Okay,
threshold.
so,
80% of median income.
all right.
So if we were in the future, I'm not proposing for this year because we'd have to income qualify an area, but say you had a street, for example, that had some needs. It needs new drainage systems, new water main, and so on and so forth. And we pounded the pavement, we sent out surveys, and more than 50% of the persons that live on that street reported an income of that or less that would qualify that street through the CDBG program. There isn't time to do that sort of thing.
Answer this question for me. If we have, for example, people who would meet the financial criteria, but unfortunately don't own that domicile, those domiciles are owned by an individual party that owns 2 or 3 or 4 of these places, and people with very low incomes live in them, doesn't that make it difficult for us to qualify?
So technically,
Yes.
investor owner properties are eligible for this program, but I am not recommending that for you this year.
Okay.
Okay, I'm recommending that we pursue, so I talked about a street, qualifying a street. That's not part of this proposal this evening. We're talking about doing maybe some housing rehabilitation, some planning, okay? And for someone to qualify for housing rehabilitation assistance, they need to meet those income eligible thresholds, okay? So I'm proposing that they have owner-occupied units, but it can be multiple units, so long as the owner is residing in that unit.
Right.
Otherwise, it gets really complex
Yes,
with
it
having
does.
to file an affordable housing restriction
Yeah.
with the state, and the person that owns that property would have to agree to a locked-in rate for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if that person sells the property, the next buyer would still be locked
Yeah.
into that affordable housing restriction for that 15-year. So I'm not
Well, that's
proposing,
if they invest money into that housing.
if they took money from this program for assistance.
So
So
it
I'm not-
may still be worth it to people if they get significant upgrades to their property where it's,
Well, it
You're
may,
creeping behind,
but I
but-
mean, that will make
but
our
yeah,
eligibility very
very
difficult,
difficult,
because
yes.
most of our low-income folks live in properties that
That
are
are rentals.
owned by investors.
I understand that. I read that online, and I understand that might be a challenge, but we're not
Yeah.
proposing a really large program here. We're proposing an 8-unit program,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And to hopefully attract owner-occupied units within the South Barre Plains section of
Okay.
town. I am, so several years back through this program, the state actually mandated and dictated that communities designate a target area for CDBG assistance. They took that off the table within the last few years, but I'd like to resurrect it for Barre to give you the strongest competitive application for
Great.
getting funded this particular round. So we've determined, based on census data, that Barre Plains.
Yeah, in South Barre.
South Barre is over 54% low to moderate income. And that's going to give the town a competitive advantage with this grant application to try and tap into these funds and get your foot in the door. Now, if this grant is funded, you know, I fully expect that hopefully we could pursue larger, more grandiose things, like, you know, rehabbing a complete street. I've seen some within that area that look like they may qualify. But quite frankly, there's not time to
Right, at this point.
to analyze and assess and do a full income survey to qualify a street. Next year, maybe.
Maybe.
So maybe the stepping stone to get to that is an infrastructure planning study.
Yeah.
And now I know, I've read you guys are you're planned out, okay? But the studies that I'm proposing are more direct, looking at real tangible things that could lead to real tangible assistance, okay? Like, you know, what is like I read something about your water mains within that area is, you know,
An issue,
possibly
yeah.
in need of some help. So that could be fully analyzed, and that could be used as, you know, more data to pursue, like some sort of a water improvement project and subsequent applications. So I'm proposing a housing unit program of up to 8 units, okay? And did you folks happen to get these by chance?
Yep.
Okay. So that's the basic structure of the
Yeah.
housing program that I'm proposing.
How many, what's the amount of money that
They
this?
can get up to
that the-
40,000.
What about the state? What did the state have to divvy up?
So they have $30 million to divvy up statewide.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is after the cities have already, what they call entitlement cities are all
Yeah,
taken care of,
so-
okay,
So the entitlements get their money directly from the feds, HUD.
right,
In this particular, we're going through the state.
okay,
The state CDBG program, which traditionally they used to call the small cities program.
Right, yeah.
You know, so.
well, we're a small city, sorta,
Yeah, you sort of are, yeah.
sorta,
Yeah. So, you know, if we were to receive funds from this, so the application is due on September 10th. I expect we'll know by maybe the first of the year, and then a few months after that, you may receive a contract if it's funded.
now, say it's funded, they don't expect you to finish this by the end of the fiscal year if they don't give you the money,
They give you
or,
an 18-month programmatic period.
Oh, 18
which-
months,
Which
okay.
I believe would start in their mind January 1.
okay, that makes sense.
So we'll lose a few months right off the
Yeah.
bat, we're trying to step contracts, do environmental.
Now, is this something that, when your block grant is produced, does the planning committee kind of manage this, or does the selectmen's group manage it?
We're proposing that CM and RPC manage this grant on your behalf.
Okay,
So
on-
full,
okay, on the
soup to
town's-
nuts administration, writing the grant, you know.
Are you going to even write the grant?
Yeah,
do you?
writing the grant, preparing all the forms, conducting the environmental review on behalf of your appointed environmental review certifying officer.
Okay.
So soup to nuts, probably about 20%,
Okay,
you know. So each year, the DHCD puts out rules, and they can modify the rules from year to year, but the current rule is communities are eligible for $1.35 billion every 2 years, but no more than $800,000 in one specific year. So say, for an example, if things work out with Barre, I'm proposing the smaller application this year, $5 up to maybe 550, to leave the full 8 on the table for a next year application. You know, if we could identify, say, a road that needs complete rehab with water mains and drainage systems and street and sidewalks and whatnot, you know. So that's what I'm proposing this year. Get the foot in the door with some housing rehab and some planning, okay? And then if successful, and CMRPC has got some hours and some time to begin to really, you know, look at the community from a CDBG perspective.
Exactly.
I know we've had our other planners in here looking at other things, open space and recreation, but we're really focused on rural physical things that get done in a short period of time. If you've ever driven through Warren and Hardwick, you'll see CDBG initiatives in place, you know, sewer mains and water lines and road and street projects and housing rehab and you know, I've even done a park in Warren, Dean Park, some years back. And Senator Barre, he used to come to all of my open houses. I know he's a Barre
Oh, Senator Brewer, you
Yeah,
mean.
I'm sorry. What did I say, Senator Barre?
Yes, you did. Well, you may as well call it.
Senator Barre,
Yeah.
right?
I think there was
Okay.
a similar program, I lived in Haverhill years ago, and they had a similar program, and I tell you, it was very beneficial. We had a lot of buildings that were really run down. There was strictly rental units, and it encouraged people to buy them because they bought them inexpensively, and they got this money, whether it meant de-letting houses or fixing houses up, but the key is the 15-year payback, that owner stayed and lived there.
Yeah.
So I probably saw half the houses in my neighborhood become owner-occupied houses, and that changes the tone of the whole neighborhood. And it was very successful there, and that's a, you know, it's a valuable street now to live on.
I mean, I have had people call me already and tell me, you know, about the properties they own and whatnot. And there is other funding sources out there to make housing improvements. But I'm not proposing any real complicated strategies
For year one.
involving housing for year one, right?
Yeah.
Let's get in there, sort of help some owner-occupied properties, fix them up, bring them up to code. So we don't do, this is not, you know, the renovation show. I mean,
Right.
this is rehabilitation, just trying to address code issues, building
Yeah.
code issues. There are no expansions and no remodeling, so I'm saying that right out. No expansions, no remodeling, it's windows, it's roofs, it's weatherization, it's electrical, plumbing.
Is it
We can't do septic.
is it sidewalks and such though too?
What's that?
This grant?
Not in this.
Infrastructure is eligible for
Okay.
CDBG funding,
Well, I'm just
but I'm
saying-
not proposing that as part
Okay.
of it. You know,
I'm just saying down in Barry Plains, there's, you know, a need for some of that,
I
but,
talked to Jessica about that, and I understand you have some plans in place, but, you know,
Well,
they can look at.
Unfortunately, we've been in place for many, many years, and it seems.
Well, I was actually licking my chops when I saw some of the conditions down there in South
South Barry.
Barry.
Oh,
There are
yeah.
issues of handicap non-compliance at your
Right.
intersections. The walks themselves aren't really compliant. So that's all eligible work through CDBG. Now, if you've got plans in place, great, you know.
Well,
But if you don't get to it,
Well,
I think
that's
that-
the problem. It's been probably 5 years that these plans have been in place, and we have, as we said, a failing infrastructure and water and sewer in places, and it seems like, you know, we have heavy rains, we have washouts, and we have sewer system issues, we have water main breaks, and it almost seems like every other week or every week they're out fixing something else, and they keep not getting to that project they need to get to.
So leaving this meeting, I'd like to have authorization to engage your DPW staff, your water, your sewer, your highway department, and sort of begin to get buy-in for this infrastructure planning study focused in South Barry and Barry Plains. More I learn,
so
the
basically
better.
you need a motion and an approval by the board to authorize any necessary group within the community to work with you on this process.
Yeah, I'd like to see that they do it willingly, so we
Well,
can.
no, I don't think that they
No,
wouldn't do
no, I
it,
know, I'm just-
but I'm just saying, if you need such a motion,
Well-
I would move that the select board authorize and encourage any town entity that needs to work with the Central Mass Regional Planning in the development of a grant for the Community Development Block Grant Program, be authorized to do so.
All right, I do have a few other just real critical topics that I'd
Well,
like to cover.
let me just see
So
if we have
motion on the table.
if we have a second, and then we can use your conversation as discussion.
I just want to call it the language you use, that we would authorize and/or encourage, because we don't have authority over the water or sewer commissions.
Well, I did
But
authorize
I
and
know, and that's what I'm
encourage.
saying, that's why I just wanted to point out, she said authorize or encourage, because we certainly can't speak on behalf of those commissions, but I certainly second the motion to authorize any of our town departments under our control to speak with you and work with you, and we certainly encourage
Yeah.
the water and sewer commissions to do the same, as well as the planning board.
So you're.
I have a second, so.
So we just, if you want to just continue with discussion.
I would,
Yeah, well, vote, we have a motion to second, so now we'll continue with discussion at this
Okay,
point,
great.
and before we move to a vote.
So, for housing rehab, I'd like to engage your health board and your building department, you know, to maybe get like a support letter from them and just give them some overall, you know, overview of the housing rehab program. So again, should we obtain this grant, people that qualify for housing rehab, I'm proposing that we build a list, a waiting list now. And I had a form I ran by Jessica. I'd like to distribute that on your website and throughout the South Barre area. So this is establishing need and demand for housing rehab services. So I'll gain a list, okay? And if funded, I'm suggesting we pull a lottery. So say we get 20 names, we're gonna do 8 units, we'll pull all 20 names and just list them. You know, I've been often asked, well, why isn't it by need? Well, what do you mean by need? By income, by the severity of the housing? So that could get very subjective, so that's why I'm
So you do a
proposing
lottery?
Yeah. So I'm proposing a lottery, and I want to build a list that we can use in the application for that purpose.
So of course, the lottery would have to be just including people who are qualified income-wise that would.
Yeah, well, hopefully they're going to see the form which shows the income.
Right.
And then that'll get them on the name, and then if they say they're in the tops of the lottery, then there's a full income qualification
So these people will
process.
have to be property owners,
Owner occupied.
owner occupied with the appropriate per capita income.
Yeah, it's say per capita, it's whatever their
Whatever the-
annual household income.
Annual
Right, the
household-
poverty level.
Annual
Okay.
household income is
Okay.
what's going to be evaluated.
Which
So
should be evaluated by that sheet that he gave us with.
We
the,
actually partner with the
the times.
Pioneer Valley Planning Commission that, you know, well, actually under my move, but they actually have a whole housing team that has an income qualification staff, people that prepare the contracts, people that file with the Registry of Deeds. So CMRPC partners with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission for the administration
So you,
of the housing.
so you
rehab
make sure
program.
they're qualified.
So the person that does the income qualification has to collect their pay stubs, or quite often if they're seniors, it's just a letter from the Social Security Administration. So a full application occurs as
So
part of this.
I'm just saying, as long as that list we take of people for the lottery
Yeah,
are
we'll do that
pre-qualified.
publicly.
Yeah.
Pre-qualified list.
That
I mean,
pre-qualifies, right?
Right, as long as
And
they're
then-
pre-qualified, unless, then I think
Yeah.
a lottery is
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
fine. It's,
Fine with me.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's
So-
reasonable, acceptable.
So people know, we call this a deferred payment loan, people that actually qualify for housing rehab assistance, okay? So we don't want to provide funding for someone so they can fix it up and sell. We want to provide funding so that they stay in their homes.
Right.
Okay, so they call it a deferred payment loan over 15 years. So say a homeowner gets $40,000 worth of assistance, okay? In year one, there will be a $40,000 lien. In year two, it'd be 37, and so on and so forth, and it goes down to 0. So at the end of a 15-year period, it becomes a grant. So, and that's a recapture rate. And if the town has to recapture funds because the homeowner sells, the funds go to the town for your use on other projects. So,
Nice. That's very similar to what I experienced when I lived in Haverhill.
yeah, it's the same program.
It really encouraged people to stay put, which really, it helped build the community, because when you had a lot of rentals, especially in an impoverished part of the town, the people come and go, and you don't get any sense of community, you don't get any, neighborly,
So I am
bondings anywhere, and
concerned
it's just,
due
it's,
to the, I'm sorry.
no, it's, I like the program.
Yeah, I am concerned because I did see the level of properties that were straight up investor properties in that area. So I am a little nervous about the response, and getting an adequate number. So this program also is open up to emergencies, community-wide, and emergencies as determined by your building inspector or your health board. And we're talking like, okay, if it's a septic, we're not talking about a septic that's, technically failed. We're talking about breakouts and backups, something that's a real health threat or safety issue.
Now, I would say
okay?
most of the people in that area probably are on the sewer system.
Should be on the sewer
Okay, on
down
that, but
there.
I'm saying, if there's an emergency in the town,
Okay,
emergencies can be townwide.
okay,
So the focus is gonna be in South Barre, Barre Plains, but if an emergency develops in the town, as determined by your building inspector or health board agent, where there's a safety or a health threat, an imminent or safety health threat, well, we can perhaps do that emergency as well.
mhm.
Well, I'm sure there are plenty of owner-occupied units as well. The large units are all just investment properties to people.
So we'll
But
just-
I'm sure there are plenty of owner-occupied.
I hope.
And I would think that most people would look at this, and especially if they do have roots here and plan to stay, which a lot of those buildings are, that we'll get applications for. I mean, at the very worst for somebody, they've got a loan that gets repaid back when they sell their house within before 15 years.
So I'd like to visit your senior center, perhaps get that form up on the website. I don't know if there's a Facebook site that's popular in town.
Yeah.
So let's make this widely available to mainly South Barre residents, so I can use this as evidence of need and demand for this service that I can put in the application. I think I suggested that the deadline for receiving these would be August 31st. So hopefully, I'd like to be able to say, oh yeah, through an outreach effort, we had 20 owner-occupied residents of South Barre indicate a need or desire for this program. Something like that.
We'll get spreading the word. Any further discussion?
Couple items, just very quick.
Okay.
You need to appoint an environmental certifying officer. I nominate Jessica. It's
great.
as part of these programs, as part of NEPA, the National Protection Act, we have to do a statutory checklist, environmental review. We do that, but it has to be signed off by someone locally.
So we need to have,
There's a simple form that needs to be signed.
and we just need to create an official title for that and assign it.
That is the official title, Environmental Certifying Officer.
Environmental certifying officer. Okay, well, we'll have to address that when we finish the motion in hand.
Okay. There will be some forms over the next few weeks that require mainly the CEO signature for the application itself. So Environmental Certifying Officer designation, and the actual application itself has a couple forms that require signatures. Lastly, there will be a required public hearing. This was largely informational at this point in time, but sometime in 2 weeks in advance of the application date, there should be a formal public hearing that has to be published and posted. August,
16th. August 16th is our next meeting.
that would have to be.
Is that okay? Is that,
Okay.
that's
Yeah, I'll make it happen.
And that's when we'd have to officially
certified?
certify that you are going to do this on our behalf and run the gamut at that point.
Well, you're sort of, I
Yes.
thought you said
Yes.
tonight, you said
Yeah.
we're gonna do this for you.
Oh,
But-
right, well-
But at the next.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
public
should we
hearing-
clarify language, because we said to encourage our town employees and everyone to talk with you. Do we need to officially designate you as our representative for this, so you can do these on our behalf?
Well, I did say Central Mass Regional Planning, so I think,
Did Andrew send a memorandum of understanding, Jessica?
Not that I can.
Well, we've often launched these grant initiatives without anything formal, but, as part of the formal application, which will be discussed again on August 16th, there will be a management plan that will talk about Central Mass Regional Planning
Okay.
Commission. and
I'm just
obviously
making sure you have
mechanisms.
everything from us you need tonight.
Yeah,
before we-
It's just, I'd like you to designate Jessica Environmental Certifying Officer, and then formally decide that August 16th will be the public hearing.
okay, so we have
do
one
that.
motion on the
Yep.
floor about encouraging people
Right.
to
So-
participate.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now,
Make a motion to appoint Jessica Sizer as the environmental certifying officer as required under the Community Development Grant Block Grant Program.
Second that motion?
motion second to identify Jessica as the environmental certifying officer. Thanks, I'm really good there. And do we have any further discussion on it? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And lastly, shall we agree to set the public hearing date
Yes.
for our meeting on August 16th? I'll make that motion.
To start when? Would that be our first item on the agenda?
Our second, we have another public hearing for that night already, so.
Okay, so we'll make sure that gets
I'll
formally
get
in the
a
newspaper?
timeline.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion is second to have our public hearing on this in the August 16th meeting. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Thank you very much.
I can't thank you enough for your time, I appreciate it.
Oh, we appreciate this. This is
May I
good for
get
us.
a copy of this sign-off sheet when you get a chance
Yeah,
digitally?
absolutely.
I looked at it.
Okay.
I brought another in case it was needed. Thank you very much,
Chris.
Board, and I look
Thank you.
forward to working with you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Take
Nice
care.
to meet you.
Thanks, folks.
See you, Chris.
Okay, next up, we have Sarah Wells, Mount Grace Land Trust for Hubbardston Road Conservation Restriction.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having me tonight. I did send an email to Jessica last week, but our email accounts are not getting along, and it was rejected, so I apologize. I do have a document that I'd like to share with you.
Sure.
So I apologize for that. And Jessica did make copies earlier tonight.
Yeah, I just need to go grab them because
Okay.
it's taking some time.
And it's okay, I don't think we need it tonight necessarily.
You
but-
guys will have copies for later then.
If we need them, we can get them.
Okay, okay, great. So I'm Sarah with Mount Grace Land Trust, and I want to talk with you because we're working with the Smith family in
Yes,
Barre.
yeah, very-
Yeah, so they own land, about
Mhm.
90 acres on Hubbardston Road.
I know they do, yeah.
Okay, they have, most of it's on the north side of the road, and then across
Yep.
the street, there's this big red barn,
Yep.
and another 15 acres.
Very familiar with the property.
Okay, great. So they would really like to conserve it, and the situation they're in now is that it's been in their family for several generations. Yeah, and Bertine, it sounds like you
I
know
do.
the family well. So she's not able to live in the home at
Right.
this point, so she gave the property to her daughters a couple years ago. And as you know, they don't live in Barre, and
Right.
they're not in a position to take care of the house and the property, so they actually put it on the market this week, and the
Mhm.
sign's
Yeah.
already up. I don't know if you saw it, but it's of utmost importance to them to conserve it first. So we've been working with the family for the better part of a year, I think at this point, to write the restriction. The restriction is a document that gets recorded at the Registry of Deeds, so it runs with the deeds, and so it'll stay in effect no matter who owns the property in the future. And it's mostly wooded, but there is an old Christmas tree farm. I haven't seen it, but I've heard stories about it. And there's a small field that Carter and Stevens has
Mhm.
used over the years. So we've really tried hard to craft the conservation restriction in a way that really encourages future farming and forestry. And the family is happy to have people go out there and walk. There's some old cart paths.
Mhm.
It'll be open for hunting. They're donating the conservation restriction, and the property is already enrolled in Chapter 61, and I imagine that whoever buys it will keep that enrollment up. And I'm mentioning that because I think it's important to note that there's no anticipated tax loss for the town because of conservation.
Sir, say I was a person who wanted to buy that home, okay? So I buy it with this restriction?
Mhm.
That's the way it goes? I see.
It's part of the deed,
Yeah.
correct, so it can't
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
Okay.
it can't be changed.
Yeah, and I've been talking with the realtor, her name is Reinhild, I believe, and because it's important to the family that whoever buys the property
Loves it
really
like they
gets
do.
how important it is to them, because this is their legacy. I mean, they love this property and they want to keep it the way it is, and I can't explain how much that means to them. It sounds like you have a sense of that. And we take that seriously at Mount Grace, and that's a big deal when someone trusts you to take care of their legacy like that. So we have expressed that we're really open to talking to any potential buyers who are serious, that they know what's in the conservation restriction, they feel good about it, hopefully proud of it, and that they can use the property, because the point of these is not to lock up the landscape and prevent people from doing things, it's to conserve the values that are there and make sure that activities that happen are compatible with taking care of the land.
Now, a second buyer is going to have the same restrictions?
It'll run with the deed.
Forever.
So,
Okay.
yes, that's the intent with this, definitely.
It could forever change your value and make it hard to sell and you lose value, but they can't change what it is.
Exactly. Now,
Um,
so what do you need from the select board?
Right, so the state of Massachusetts requires that select boards review and sign the conservation restrictions. There's no legal or financial or stewardship obligation that we're proposing that the town have at all. It's really just showing that there's awareness and that you would hopefully agree that it's in the public interest to have this conservation restriction go into place. We are in the final stages of going through the review with the state, so we're not able to actually sign it yet, but we don't expect the language to really change very much. So my hope in coming here tonight and talking to Jessica is that this would be a good chance to see if you had any questions and see if you are comfortable with the idea of the project, so that hopefully I could come back in August and at that time ask you to formally approve it and sign the document.
Mhm. What right would the select board have to not allow a family to do what they would with land?
Taxes.
Taxes?
Development.
But it's already 61A.
Right, but it's just like my objection to the town bylaws that we had proposed were restricting farmers that they could not do this, and they restricted how they could develop. And I don't want to tell any individual owner what they can and can't do with their land. If this is their choice and they want to protect it because they want to see the family farm stay as it is, and I think that's their program, they should be allowed to. But there's certainly the ability to say, no, we'd like to let someone buy it, because we see it as being a nice little 16-house development up there, and that's what we want. So you deny that, and then someone could buy it and develop it, we could get more tax money out of it. But that's never been my intent of arguing against the bylaws at town meeting. I want the landowners to have the choice in their property, and that would be, for me, exactly what this is about. And if the farmer in town has 1,000 acres and he wants to preserve it, then let him. That's fine with me as well.
Well,
Thank you, I appreciate you sharing that.
That's
we'd learn a lot.
people think I'm dead against it. I only want development. I don't want all development. I like where we live. I like how it is. But I
Yeah.
also want people to have choice in what they do with their own properties.
Absolutely, and sometimes people think that now Grace or Land Trusts are opposed to development, and we're not. We're just thinking about balance, and like you said, landowner choice.
I think there's room in town to have bylaws like we talked about. at
Well,
town
I like the
meeting,
fact
but
that
I asked the
the
table because I
restrictions
wanna
are so
see 'em.
reasonable.
Right.
People can walk the land, hunt on the land.
Right.
That's a big issue with all the wildlife sanctuaries we have.
And the 61A,
Yeah.
I'm sure the Stevens want to keep paying the land or, using the field for their farm events as they do sometimes, and
Right.
that's probably important to them to keep doing, which helps them keep that 61A.
Right,
Well, the new owner can allow them to under this, but they don't have to let them do it.
that's right, so I think.
Right, they could lose their protection.
I don't think that would be the case, but I'm very familiar with the property. It would be wonderful to conserve it for community use and for, the use of the members of the community who would like to do that. I mean, hunt on it. I mean, not that I'm a hunter, but some people are.
Especially in that area, there's quite a few.
Yeah, especially in that
That's a
area,
good hunting
yeah.
grounds out there.
Right, and they're fine with allowing.
With all the land clearing a little further down, up
Yeah.
across the street, that's going to really
Yeah.
kill some of the habitat for the
Yeah.
Right.
deer, but it's probably key to keep them more in areas like this.
Well, I do have the city one pager that has the map on the back in case you were curious and wanted to see that. And there's the document itself is, I think we're up to maybe 25, 26 pages. And the bulk of it is spelling out the things that can happen on the property that are compatible with conservation. And in thinking about it, so I could come back on the 16th if that worked with your agenda. And if you were comfortable with voting to approve at that time and signing, we could do it that way. Or I think it might also be possible if you felt inclined to vote tonight if there was a contingency baked in that, pending state's approval of the conservation restriction, and then you could sign outside
I
of the
wouldn't be
meeting, or-
inclined to for one reason.
Okay.
As we found out in a recent 61A issue, the
We
Conservation
did.
Committee does want to have their input, so,
Okay.
I don't want them to think that we were trying to roll over them last time by not asking for their input. We didn't understand that they'd like to have it, so
Okay.
we'll take I think we're all, unless we have any disagreement,
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement this is a great idea that we think, and we'd certainly like to let Conservation and Planning have a comment on it, and we will be ready to do a vote if need be by special meeting to
Okay.
hurry it along for you when it comes along, but
Yeah.
we will wait on that just
So
to
that-
make sure
Jessica,
they
is
have
that
their
the
chance.
second,
That makes sense, yeah.
is that the other public hearing you were talking about that we, no? So
No,
this
yeah.
there was a threefer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Busy August.
Yeah,
Okay.
We've kind of tried to push off to one meeting a month for these 2 months after, when you get ready for town meeting with the budgeting, and we had so many administrative changes, we try to take a break and cut back. We still have DPW commission, so we still have 2 meetings a month instead of
Yeah.
3. So we can conduct business in between, but yeah, it kind of stacks up the meetings we have for these couple.
Right, I bet. do you want me to reach out to the Conservation Commission, or is that something that you'll do?
We'll let Jessica do that, I
I can
think.
reach out and copy you.
Okay,
Yeah.
great,
Yep,
thank you.
and-
I should get your emails.
I mean, they may want to become familiar with the property. Maybe they are familiar with the property, I'm not sure.
I would wager they're all familiar with the property.
They could be. I don't think anybody's tramped around on it a whole lot, because they've, as I said, this has been in that family for.
But I mean, just the land, the land
Yeah.
masses, the land masses in
These
general,
are,
I
these
think
are Mayflower people.
Yeah, and the
And-
land is interesting for how big it is. It doesn't
It is.
directly abut any other existing protected land.
Yeah.
So it's different if there was a sanctuary, like you
Mhm.
said, right next door. People
Yep.
are used to
Yep.
trail systems that cut through, so it's pretty unique, and it's
Yes, it
very
is.
close to the center of town.
Very close to.
I'm surprised to see the conservation parcels reach almost all the way back to
Isn't that
Williamsville.
amazing?
That is,
Yeah.
because I often drive at Williamsville Road and look and say, what, that is like a mile over there to get to that. There's a lot of land back
There's
there.
a lot of land back.
And I've never got the opportunity to go walk it or look for the trails back there. I've done some of the other ones, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of land back there too in this side, so.
This is a neat piece, and it's big. I mean, 90 acres is nothing to sit at.
No, it's a
so-
lot, it's a big
Yeah,
piece.
that's-
And like you say, it's
big
wooded
piece of
and,
Mhm.
They're pretty heavily wooded, I would bet, in there as
Okay.
well.
Good. Well, thank you for your time tonight, and I will see you in a month.
you know,
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Exciting. I like to see this.
Yes. See, if somebody wants to lock the land up, that's great.
It's-
Most people say, I want to profit, I want to split it, I want to sell it.
yeah, I guess a lot of
Somebody-
land.
It is, and it's a big piece, and, you know, there's probably a lot of people that would love to get a chance to buy a piece of land like that, because it's hard to come across something like that.
Well, if you just want land. yeah.
Right,
But if you-
but people do, and
Well,
and everyone
but see, if you're a
subdivides and
person
sells.
who, you know, say you want to have horses, that's no use to you. Nice barn, you'd have to take this and do some fields with it. I guess you could do
Yeah, but
that,
that would-
farming, that's
You
close
need
enough.
an acre for a paddock, you don't need much more.
Well, I disagree with you.
Well,
You need a little more.
it's nice
than
to
that.
have more.
Yeah.
But you can do it less, but they can certainly clear stuff and have more. They can, horses don't mind woods if they're not too thick, if you cleared underbrush out.
Well, I don't know if I'd agree with that, but
I had Irish draft horses. They like to push through everything. All right, Purple Heart signs.
this must be you.
This is probably Dennis.
Thank you for the opportunity for me to be here tonight, appreciate it. If you look behind you, there's a plaque, the smaller one,
Other way.
which
Dr.
was
Marshall.
designated the town of Barre.
Behind Greg.
Purple.
Oh,
That's
over
the
there.
Purple Hat Bridge,
Oh,
but
great.
the one right behind
Okay.
Dr. Marshall.
Oh, that's the
is
plaque, yeah, okay.
That designates Barre
Purple
Purple Hat Community, and that was done a few years ago when Leif Erickson was on the board.
Oh, yeah.
Who holds a Purple Hat.
Right,
The military order, the Purple Hat came here and designated the town. And unknown to any of us at the time, I thought that they provided signs for the town. Because if you go around at different times, you'll see some of them.
Right.
have the
Our community,
signs up.
right.
Either as it may. So fast forward to this year, I was checking into who makes the signs and found a few places. One place we decided to go with was MassCore, which is part of the Department of Corrections Industries. They make all kinds of stuff, mostly street signs, things like that, I mean, as well. So, through Jessica, the American Legion, and myself, we contacted MassCore, and they provided a proof of what the sign would look like. And we went ahead and had, I think it was 6 of them made. And what was done at other towns is all of your major roads that come in, when you're
Mhm.
coming into the town, like Welcome to Barre sign,
mm-hmm,
the state has jurisdiction on 122, so the state supervisor for this area is John Costa. And John went ahead and put one up by the, what's the seafood restaurant? High Tide,
okay,
which is near the Petersham line.
Right.
And appropriately, at the town line at Oakham on 122, you may have known him, I'm not sure, Ed Cormier.
oh, sure,
He had a Purple Hat. He was awarded one posthumously
Right.
because he was killed in action.
Right.
Barry's only
sure,
casualty. So one of the signs went where his sign is, naming the bridge there.
okay,
The other signs were brought to Jason Pimento at the DPW to put at 67,
mm-hmm,
32 Wheelwright, Williamsville Road, and 62.
Yeah,
So 67, 62, 32.
122,
And
2 on one.
Williamsville.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, nice.
That means you have 2 more?
I'm
That means you
sorry.
have 2 more that you need a location for? You said there were 6 signs, right?
Right. 2 are up. I think it was 6. How many did I just name? 1, 2. Yeah, 6. So,
Oh, that's very nice signs. Nicely
that's the end
done.
product, and it has Barre written right on it.
Yeah, very nice,
Nice.
See behind me.
very nice.
And we had to order the signs through the Legion as a nonprofit
Yeah.
because they don't deal with private entities. The Mass War doesn't. And with Jessica's help and Tony Misnicki. So the rest of these signs, and this one will go back down to the DPW to put up around the town, which is one. It was voted on with the previous administration, and out of courtesy, wanted to let you guys see this before
Very nice.
they went ahead and put them up with the town so that you grant them permission to do so.
Appreciate it. It's nice to see. It's certainly
Yeah, very nice, yeah.
already been granted. This is a formality, but we appreciate it.
It's some kind of an aluminum alloy metal on the back so they'll never rust.
I certainly move approval to have the DPW place the signs as noted here in the meeting, and our thanks to the American Legion and to Jessica and others who were helpful in getting this project completed. Very nice, thank you.
Second.
Motion is second to approve and thank everyone involved for getting these signs ready. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye. Thank you, Dennis.
thanks very much,
Thank
Dennis.
you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Have a good night.
You too. Okay, Lester, Public Health Agreement.
Yes.
That was
so-
fun to read through.
Yeah,
Yeah, in your packet, you saw that there's an intermunicipal agreement
Yep.
between the town of Barre and the town of Gloucester. So, several months ago, I had mentioned that, I don't know if it was before Dr. Marshall was on the board or not, but that, we were going into a grant application, to join a regional, basically public health agreement, with the town of Gloucester and I believe 3 or 4 other communities in this area. And so luckily we received that grant, the town of Leicester technically applied for it as the lead applicant. And it will basically establish a public health region for this area until the end of the fiscal year 25, I think it'll be FY25 by that point. So it will really give us like a good opportunity to see if a regional health district would work for the town of Barre. I thought it was a really smart idea to join into this application for a couple reasons. One, we have a part-time administrative assistant in public health, or Board of Health, who's absolutely incredible. And then we also have a part-time Board of Health agent who kind of comes in per diem as needed. And, you know, he's not gonna be employed by the town forever. And I think, you know, he's getting close. He just retired from the city of Worcester, which was his main gig last year. And so I think that we just need to be cognizant of where we go in the very near future. And so this presented itself as, I think, a really great opportunity for us to try it out. And it's kind of a situation where we can develop the relationship to fit what Barre needs this year. So this year, as I mentioned, you know, we don't want to let Phil go. So we are going to keep Phil, you know, he really enjoys doing like the Title V and sewer inspections. So we're going to keep him for those purposes, and then, you know, the other public health inspections and needs that the town has, we will use the town of Leicester for. Obviously, we don't need an administrative assistant, which is one of the services that Leicester could have offered to us. So, you know, we're going to keep Andrea as our administrative assistant. But in the future, you know, if we determine that this is a good relationship for us and it's a good model that works, I think it would be really beneficial for the town to continue working on this regional agreement. And then I know that there's opportunities for more funding and a greater expansion to focus on other public health needs. As I mentioned when we were initially applying for this, you know, it could focus on mental health and nutrition and just a lot of other health programs that in a small town we don't necessarily have the resources to deploy from our Board of Health office currently. So I think that, you know, in the greater picture, we could have a lot of opportunities.
Greater services offered to the whole community.
Yeah, I think it could be really transformative, and especially coming out of a pandemic, we're really going to need to focus on, you know, emergency management planning, like if we have a medical emergency or another kind of pandemic, and just what happens post-pandemic. I think mental health is going to be a huge challenge, and there's going to be some other public health related issues that, you know, having a regional agreement could help us.
The only concern that I have, Jessica, in this, and I know I understand why it's there from the perspective of Leicester. I don't appreciate that it's there from our perspective when it says, however, in the event of an emergency impacting both parties, that would be us and them,
Yep.
Leicester may prioritize the safety of its employees, citizenry, and property as they deem appropriate. So I would worry, you know, in some, that how can we have some effort on our part to have a backup if we needed it?
Well,
Right.
for right now, I'd say, because we have Phil and we have Andrea, and we're not giving up.
Okay,
Right now, we're augmenting, adding to our services.
okay.
And if I'm
I
correct.
think we should call it that then,
Right.
augmenting
And-
our service
And
delivery.
I think one of the things I asked is that there'll be record keeping as well. So when people are looking for things like your septic plans and designs.
Right.
It's hit or miss to get them in the office, to get it
Yeah.
Andrew available, but they're gonna be on file
Yeah.
there. So as I was reading through, if I understood it correctly, both parties, our town people, will report to them and update them with the information, and they, in turn, when they do inspections and things, will keep us posted. So we should have sort of a sharing of information in two sources or resources for people to go to for these different sources. And then, yes, over the next 3 years, or 4 years, it sounds like, we'll get the chance to, you know, kick the
Check it
tires
out,
and
kick
see
it
how
out.
this is working.
Yeah.
And
I would just want to make sure that we have some sort of a backup plan because obviously if I were Leicester, I would have the expectation that we'd come first. And sometimes in a public health emergency, it's really impossible
Right.
to just say, yes, that's okay if they go first.
Right.
luckily,
So-
they're also far enough removed from us. They're not really right next door to us.
Well,
So-
but,
so-
you know, I look at another potential pandemic. I think about the ice storm we had
Right,
in
we could have
2009.
probably
I
a
mean,
50 or 100-year event may come
Yeah.
up with, where we both sort of suffer at the same time. But for now, we do have resources, and we can also, at that point, either make alternate planning here.
Yeah.
with-
Well, I think
with
we
the
just
fire
have to be
department
aware
emergency
to
and-
be, you know,
Yes.
because I agree that we're too small to do this on our own, and so we have to figure out ways to regionalize our service delivery patterns to make things, the best possible services available to our community. I just don't want our community not to have a
Right.
specific source like, or, you know, service when, you know, just because they had the tornado and we did too.
Right.
Fortunately, we don't have those much.
And we may
At least in
decide
year
to,
one, it seems like
Yeah,
we'll be covered, and then.
yeah.
we may
Yeah.
decide to continue to employ at least a part-time,
Yeah.
you know, health inspector here, or Board of Health personnel
Well, just to
here.
have a Board of Health person who has the sophistication to know what to do from the state perspective if we were left sort of,
Right.
for the amount of money we probably pay that individual, that's probably
And-
money well spent.
And this contract we agreed to is basically agreeing that we got grant money to
I
do
know
it, so
it,
it
so-
doesn't cost us.
Yeah.
If this changes in the future and we divert funds to make that our Board of Health,
Yeah.
then we're gonna have some recommended alterations
Yeah.
to the contract. They're gonna make sure that we are
Yeah.
covered as well as they
Yeah.
are. So we can be wise enough, whoever's sitting here in the future when this happens, to make sure that if we do engage in some sort of long-term contract and the grant's gone,
Yeah.
and we consider that's the way we wanna spend our money, as opposed to just on our own part-time, that those are things that definitely need to be considered in the contract.
I would move approval on the agreement as written and as presented.
Second that motion.
I have a motion, a second, to approve this agreement with Leicester for our health services according to the grant. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Now, I gotta find my head page again. Requests.
you need our
to
signatures,
use-
right?
I'll
You-
get you guys that.
signature, okay.
Yep.
Request to use town properties next, unless you need more on that, Jessica, before we move on?
No, I don't need anything more. I know that we do have, the request to use town property for the Barre Winter Market. You're here to speak on that, so I don't know if you want to move that up.
I'll hit the boot drive quickly, because I think it's gonna be quickly. We just have a petition by the 250th Anniversary Committee that's, of course, planning our 250th. They wanted to start fundraising, that's why we transferred those remaining funds from the 225th anniversary to them, and part of the fundraising is they want to do a boot drive up on the Common. I don't have the date in front of me offhand, do you have it?
July 24th, which
just-
is next Saturday.
July 24th, so it's coming up quick. So I see no problem with it. You know, we're not hitting them a lot. The fire department hasn't done a boot drive in years. So it's not like we're slamming people in the Common with a bunch of boot drives. So I'd look for a
I'll
motion.
move
So we have-
to approve the town, request to use town property for the 250 anniversary celebration committee.
So move, second.
Motion to second to approve the Anniversary Committee's boot drive. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Now, come on up. Thanks for coming back and seeing us. We just had a few questions last time. We just didn't want to, just run right by us and see what this is about and what's going on. We know we have our farmers market
Yes.
on the Common. We've never heard of a winter market, and we want to see what's going on.
So I've been part of the Barre Farmers Market off and on for the last 8 years. I'm an artisan. I make handmade soap products, and this year I've really kind of assisted with just helping promoting and just trying to get more awareness of what we have and what we have to offer for the community. And my goal with the winter market is to make an expansion of our farmers market to an inside market. And I was hoping to utilize the town hall space for 8 days out of the winter season to expand, to let in farmers and other artisans, to be able to utilize a winter market. So we're becoming all-year marketplace to help the community with sources of, local food and goods, and just expand the farmers market.
Off the cuff, I like the fact that it also gives people something to do in the winter, different.
Jesus, you must think we have nothing to do.
Well, something
gosh.
different, I said, something different,
Well,
something new. I
my
think people
goal-
like to go to the farmer's market and kick around up there, and I
Right.
think it's a nice.
And
unique
you're,
thing
and
to
you're
come
leaving
see.
space for the group that usually does the craft fair? or
Well,
the-
I picked a different date, so
You
I know
did.
that that's always the first September, first Saturday of December.
Okay.
Because I usually participate.
So that's
in that.
Christmas in Barre,
Yeah,
or whatever
it's
that
Christmas
is?
in Barre. So I chose.
Sandy
an
wouldn't
alternate
let
date.
that get by.
Yeah, I chose an alternate date. When we spoke on the phone, I already was
Okay,
well
she
aware
brought
of
it up
that.
to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I picked alternate dates, basically 2 Saturdays in November, 2 in December. I took January off because no one shops in January, and then 2 in February and 2 in March.
Okay.
And then that would give us a month to recover, and then our season would start again in.
Okay, so basically this is the year-round farmer's market.
I'm trying to create a year-round market, yes, but because right now our market is already established for the season, I'm looking to basically have the go so I can get out the market and get people to be aware, hopefully bring in new vendors and new product and to the town and just help support the community.
So a couple questions that I have is will there be an official affiliation with the farmer's market? Do we have some sort of nonprofit designation? Or is this for profits? I mean, obviously the farmers want to make money, but I mean, part of our discussion was there's a $100 fee to use the town hall.
Right,
That'll be $800 in fees.
I'm aware of
We'd
that.
be inclined to not charge those fees or lessen those fees depending on what's happening with the money. And that's one of the concerns we had, to see what this is about, what the intent is, who this is benefiting, and is it still affiliated with the
So
farmers
I was
market?
told by the current market manager, his suggestion was to call it a Barre Winters Market and not the Barre Farmers Market, because we're already into the farming season and it doesn't give us enough time for our current farmers to plant crop for the winter right now. So this would alleviate the need of the 70-30 ratio. So I would have to require 70% farmers to 30% artisans if I am qualified as a farmer's market.
Gotcha.
Which also means that we also have to cover ourselves with insurance for the farmer's market season, which ups our cost.
Okay.
So I was trying to make it more affordable for our farmers by just alleviating the farmer's market word and just make it a berry winter market. We are still farmer's market. My goal is to make it still 70% farmers, 30%
But we have
artisans.
no legal designation as farmers markets. We don't have a nonprofit tag on it.
Right.
But it is still the
Right.
local folks, artisans,
Correct.
and probably some farmers
Correct.
coming to sell things.
He only suggested that, so in the beginning, we can establish it, and then if we need to in the future, we could always change the name and incorporate it.
So far, the things I see, nothing's commercial. I worry about someone sneaking in with a commercial vendor with little dollar items and, I mean, somebody might have some, but I don't want to see
Well-
it turn into just someone having the flea market guys come in and stick
No.
a booth up and start selling things,
No,
because that
I
was
will be the
not.
market manager on this, and it will all be approved by me. So they would have to be run by me. So right now, I'm looking for farmers, and I'm looking for quality artisans, people that I don't have already participating in the market. When I say that, I'm looking for a jeweler. I'm looking for something that would bring people to us for those winter seasons.
And do you charge a fee for them to have?
I will charge a
to-
rental fee for them to cover the cost that you guys would need.
Okay.
Other than the need for potentially a custodian after the fact, or,
Right.
Well, all of the market vendors have already said that they would help me clean up. Like, we would maintain it, sweep up, clean up, anything like that.
I would suggest maybe we consider approving the venues and waiving the fee for the first month. See how it turns out. We can look in on who comes and how it turns out. And if we're pleased, we can certainly continue to waive fees as we go.
yeah. I think we could waive fees for November, because December they don't have, then we can make a decision
Sure.
for March and
That-
April.
That's the way I'd suggest we proceed. We just be,
Yeah,
we owe it to the town. If it turns out it's a mess and we have to clean up and stuff, then that's what the $100 covers.
Yeah.
The heat,
Right.
we're gonna heat the building.
Anyway.
We're not gonna let it freeze. It's not that much difference. I think the community likes these type of things. This is what I've been saying. I like to see more use of the common in our buildings, so.
Everyone I speak to is really excited.
I think you'll have a good turnout. I think people like to still walk in the common in the winter if they can get
Yeah.
indoors and
yeah.
do that. So I'd look for an motion, please.
So move to approve with the provisos that were explained by the chair, to give you 2 free months of rent, with the expectation to revisit the monthly fee in January, so that we can plan for your, was it March? February, March, and April and May?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Or we're gonna revisit it in December, not January, right?
Well, whenever, yeah, I guess.
We're just revisiting.
Because she's not doing it in January
We're
anyway.
only waiving the fee for 2 months. The fees are they're in effect for the rest of it.
Yeah.
We'll revisit it before they're paid and see if we want to waive one.
Second the motion.
Thank you. We have motion second to approve this with 2 months fees waived at this point.
So the current dates that I had planned on those, have I been approved for those dates? Is that
Yes.
what you're
We'll approve the dates you've listed
I'll
here.
put them on the calendar.
And they will be listed online. Jessica, do we need to read them now? The dates for this?
It can be listed online.
They're on there.
It'll be put on the calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll make those documents available for people online. I don't like to spend too much time reading things. Any further discussion? I have motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming in.
This is exciting.
Yes.
I'm excited.
I think a lot of people will be excited.
Thank you.
Positive
Request to increase
Yeah, you have some.
police officer pay.
Yeah.
Let me find that one. They're tricking me with this double-side print today. I keep flipping past
Yeah,
documents.
you've got lots to sign.
Yes, they know. Mine are all.
Yeah,
I'm
you got the
flipping by.
original print.
I'm flipping
Wow.
by. I'm
They got
going.
the copy.
Why can't I find that? Then I flip the page over and there it is. I said, oh, geez, I gotta make sure I haven't buried anything here. And these came in. Okay, so it's not there. That's good. Just did hers.
There's no document associated with this, we're just gonna have 2 proposals.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
That's what that, oh, thank you, okay. At least it saved me from looking through the rest.
Yeah.
Chief, welcome.
Good evening.
Evening.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm asking is, we have quite a detailed step program for the part-time officers, and it's outdated and it's also low. So if we want to be competitive, we both have to raise it and simplify it. So what I'm looking to do, the top step right now is $18.81.
The top step, chief?
Yeah, that's the top, and but that's what everyone's making, because we can't attract them without paying them that.
Right.
So
I
I'd
wouldn't
like to
think so.
keep that as our introductory step, and then upon completion of their field training, go to $21, which is the competitive rate.
I move approval.
Yeah, I have no objections to those rates.
Objections?
Have a second?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Motion is second to approve the rates as requested by the chief. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anything else, chief, before you go, or?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chief. Appreciate your help.
Okay. Request to roll over additional 45 hours for Tony Mobilio due to COVID.
Yes, so.
Was he denied? I'm going to ask a couple questions and I'll let you
Sure.
get. Was he denied? Did he request someone was denied vacation?
No.
Was he told by, I assume only you in this case, that he could not take his vacation during COVID?
No.
Okay. I will listen now.
Okay, sure. So Tony has worked really hard for the town over the pandemic. I think, a lot of times we think about what our emergency personnel have done for the town on a public-facing standpoint, but within our own buildings, Tony really stepped up and went above and beyond what we could really ask one person to do to keep all of our facilities really clean. And in that time, it took, away from him the ability to take that time off, because there were so many times, especially when, he's been taking some time off now that we're out of COVID. He has been really trying to take his time off, but again, he can only take off so much time in a probably 3-month period. And so he was left over with additional time that he wasn't able to use before the end of the year, and requested the board to consider having that extra 45 hours rolled over. There were times where, like, I had COVID and there was another staff member that had COVID, and a lot of times where members of our police or fire were exposed to COVID, and kind of at like a moment's notice, we would request Tony to come and totally sanitize our buildings. So I really think that he went above and beyond the call of duty this past year and a half for us. And so I'm just requesting that the board consider rolling over his vacation.
I have no doubt that he did quite a bit during COVID. What I'm concerned with is the legality of us. So we're going to probably table this for tonight, and I'll tell you why. We're talking about last year's hours, last year's funds that have already expired. So typically we had this issue with the fire chief and the police chief and the fire chiefs and DPW superintendent. We had, especially with DPW, we had the DPW foreman out. He had a horrific accident with his leg, and he actually wound up having to go out of work permanently. And then the same thing, water department had an accident, was injured for a while. So DPW superintendent had to step up and fill both of those roles. He had to do all the water checks in the towers daily to keep up with that. And as a result, he really had no way to take a vacation. The water checks are daily and everything else. And the fire chief as well. We lost ambulance personnel, and we're required by law, once you staff ALS, to staff 24 hours. And he had to spend a lot of time filling it himself to make sure we had that driver to do. This is before we had shifts paid for him, because now we have full-time slots, and he has personnel in the building. So he said, hey, I can either take my vacation right now and take the whole month of June off, or if you guys would approve this for me, I could stay and work. And so we wound up approving him to carry over some hours, and we gave him X number of months to use those hours. And we did the same thing for Jason Pimentel at the time. But those are unique circumstances. They came to our desk before the end of the year. And I'd have no problem if this came to us in June saying, absolutely. And I'd say, things have calmed down, we're out of the woods, we're going to give you till December to use up those hours. Come next year, they roll over, and if they're still in the books, they're gone. But since that year has passed, we need to check with Labor Council and or Town Council the legality if we can re-gift hours that have expired. Because it wasn't in our budget this year, and they've already legally expired. So I'll open it up for discussion for the both of you at this point, but that's my thoughts on it.
Well, what he's asking for is to roll over 45 hours of vacation time.
They're already gone.
Well, you don't allow rollovers? I don't know what
There's
the
a cap on,
personnel...
there's a
what's
cap
the
on
cap?
rollovers.
Okay, so the cap,
This is above the
above the
45,
cap.
yeah.
So they would cut it,
So
they
what
would cut July 1st.
what we're asked to do then is we're asked to modify the personnel bylaw to allow this to happen.
But they're, right at this point, they've already gone. July 1st came, they should have been cut. They should be off the books.
Which they are.
So we'd have to
That's great.
reinstate as well. So we're really gifting back hours and making an exception. It's an exception we've done before for cause, and
Yeah.
this is a similar cause.
So you're just asking
there was
for
a-
it to be, for the attorney to have an opportunity to say exactly how we should vote this.
Can we do this? They may, and we had a similar thing with one of our officers once, was looking for some pay and certain things, and we legally couldn't do it. We couldn't go back and compensate for the hours. It was during the, I think the contract negotiations, they ran into the next fiscal year. So it got to the point that we lost the whole year, and that particular officer, at that point, we were denied anyway a right to compensate for what he'd done, because we went past the fiscal year. And I don't know if that's the same with this, and we just need to make sure.
Well, if-
I'm all in favor of letting him keep his 45 hours.
Couldn't you do this even if you, for example, if we had a bill outstanding that we didn't pay in the cleanup warrants, and come September, somebody came and said, you know, you people owe, I'm going to get $300 for X, an elevator inspection
Mhm.
that we didn't pay. Don't we just go to the next town meeting and say?
The next town meeting,
Yeah,
yes.
or it doesn't have to be annual, the special town meeting, we say we need to pay, you know, I don't know, lifting
Yes.
up elevator, $300 because it was missed in the, can't we just do this and pay him straight out?
Absolutely, but
Okay.
special town meeting, probably not till.
Oh, yeah, but if he
You know.
knew, you know, I mean, there's a way to do this, I know there is.
Absolutely,
So
there's no doubt.
So
but
I'm
saying we
all
may be-
about
we may be
finding
able
the
to-
mechanism to make this happen. If we owe him the time and so forth, and it wasn't brought to our attention, doesn't mean he still doesn't deserve the time. So I just want us to try to find a
it's-
way to do this.
Well, it's one of the technicalities, we don't owe him, he could have taken his time, but he chose to do right by the town, and that cost him his time. And I don't want to see him suffer for doing the right thing.
Well, of course not.
And so, yes, if it comes
So we're
down
just-
to it,
we're
if it
just
comes
gonna-
down to it, we put it on the article in the annual town, at
Yeah.
the special town meeting.
Okay, so.
But I'm hoping we can do it before then, so that maybe he has plans this summer to take an extended vacation, and he'd like those hours now.
He probably doesn't have the time to do that with all the responsibilities he has, but.
You never know, but
Yeah.
I'd rather.
Well, I just want it to be made clear to him when he finds out that this wasn't, you know, voted in the affirmative, that the reason is because we're just trying to figure out the legal way to do this.
Absolutely.
At least that's my opinion.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying, so,
Yeah.
so I definitely wouldn't want to table for tonight, but
Okay.
I'd like us to I'll make a motion that we direct Jessica to talk to labor and town councils and see if there's any way we can take care of this prior to that without having a special town meeting on it.
I'll second that motion.
A motion is second to ask, direct Jessica to go talk with council and try to resolve this. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Thank you. We want to appoint Robert Kane to the Open Space and Recreation Committee. Do we have paper for that here?
I don't have a paper for that. It was, so we had our first open space and recreation meeting last Wednesday. We were one member short because I haven't gotten interest from anybody else. And then Robert Kane showed up as a member in the audience because he was interested in the,
Oh,
the
nice.
work of the committee. And I said, are you interested in being on the committee? And I think if everybody knows Robert Kane at this table, they
Yeah.
know he's well qualified for
Absolutely.
an open space.
I
and
don't know him, but if I'll take your
Oh,
word for it.
he is very knowledgeable about all open space, very.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion we appoint Robert Kane to the Open Space Recreation Committee.
And I will second that motion. Is there a term limit on this? Do we have a certain year seats, or we just have an open committee before we?
So for right now, the committee's purpose is just to update the open space and recreation plan, which will be done by February. So essentially, it's just like a one-year appointment.
Okay.
If the board decides to change the purpose of the committee after that, then we can talk about term limit, or when their terms expire, but for now, it's just the purpose of the.
I'm making sure before we move on. Okay, any further discussion? And then I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have firefighter Joseph Broadmarkle, wage authorization for $18.59 per hour. I would look for a motion for that.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the wage authorization for firefighter Broadmarkle. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Common and particular license for Frank's.
Where is this located?
Is this
Weenie's
Weenie's?
Weenie used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, gee.
Walk down by, yeah. Well, Weenie's was,
It's behind the farmer's.
LaCroix did that.
No, I know where it is, yeah.
Yeah,
It just
they-
didn't seem to have much business.
Oh, I thought
He's
it
got a lot
did.
more variety.
Oh, okay.
I had a lot of people talk about going
It's
there,
very
seem to
good.
like it, but I don't know.
If you have a big hot dog carving up, you're kind of pigeonholed into that business anyway.
That was,
You can't sell sandwiches. if
that
you're
was
a
done
vegetarian.
by my second wife, my boy's mother. She chainsaws too, crap. She's fantastic chainsaw artist. She does stuff all
I've
over the
seen her
place.
work.
If you're familiar with her and her husband's gun shop in Orange, they have a giant bear outside.
Oh,
It's
yeah?
bare arms. That's
Oh.
her carving. And she's done, I don't know, hundreds, if not 1,000
wow.
carvings by now. She does shows and all sorts of
So
stuff.
I guess that, the vitula license, once it's approved, then the Department of Public Health or our inspector goes and does his
They
thing.
probably already
Well,
have.
So this is the confusing things about common vic licenses, that nobody knows that they need one, and then we find out that there's a new business in town that's doing food, which we're working on this process. We're gonna have the Board of Health say, okay, if you're issuing a food permit, you need to tell them to come to my office.
Right. You get a vitula
Maybe
license.
we can tell them that maybe the Board of Health would agree that they won't inspect them until they have their Vic license.
Yeah, that could be
And
a
if we can,
policy.
I don't know, I think the Board of Health is.
As long as our
they
inspector
might-
can get there
Right.
within a reasonable
but-
time.
But then I think they can, but it's,
Yeah.
if we flip that around so they get their license and then they get their inspection, we had the same thing with the smoothie shop uptown. I'm watching on
Yeah.
Facebook, just here to call them.
Yep.
I'm not trying to shut anyone down, I'm not trying to, but if everyone else gets their licenses, it's a $6 fee or something, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Just come and get your license like everybody else, and so everyone's been doing it, but this is typical, it's open and running, and then you kind of say, you gotta take care of this.
Well, I certainly would make the motion that we approve the vitula license requested by Frank's,
Yeah, I'll
located
second.
on 122.
Motion second to approve the common vic license for Frank's on 122.
You guys have to sign the certificates and don't leave.
Any further discussion? Other than we have to sign the certificates, don't leave. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. ARPA funds.
Yes, so last month we spoke about having a conversation about what we wanted to do with ARPA funds. And in the month that has passed, I really haven't seen any additional guidance on what we can really use this money for, other than the few broad categories that we got from the federal government back in April.
No clarification yet, huh?
No clarification, I'm waiting, so what the state did with the CARES Act last year was they kind of opened up a hotline that said you could shoot a message, say, hey, I want to use this for, these funds for this purpose, and they would email you back and say, yeah, approved. And then, you can go along without worry that that money would be reimbursed. So I've been doing a lot of searching to see what other cities and towns across the United States plan on doing with the funds, but I have a brief spreadsheet of some things that have been brought to my attention right here. On what we could use the funds for in town. We want to stick with a one-time use, right? We don't want to bring anything on that's going to be a reoccurring cost.
Now,
because these-
when you say a large storage container, do you mean a storage building?
So that's something that's still in the conversation between the Chief Rogowski and I. He mentioned like a shipping container.
The Connex, yep.
But I was thinking if it would be possible to get kind of a larger storage building. If there's something that the fire department needs, it's storage. Especially with that building on Wheelwright
50,000
I mean,
sounds like a
but
lot of money for a
50,000
storage container. That's-
Right.
Well,
that-
for a
you could-
container.
You could build a steel building for that.
Right, and so
Well,
that's why
A
I,
small one, the size, well, compared to the size of a container.
Yeah.
You could certainly put a larger steel building up than that for $50,000.
right, so when the chief came to me with that idea, I said, okay, good idea, but we can do better. We can do bigger. So that's why I came, I talked to him briefly about, before he left.
What's he
for a
looking to
couple
store in there? Because the old station too, the Barre Plains Fire Station, is strictly storage right now. That's 2 bays and the upstairs and,
Right, but the building itself is not in good condition.
well,
Probably leaks. Does it leak?
no, it doesn't
I
leak.
don't
It
know
was,
about
it was,
leaking, but structurally.
it had structural damage at one point. At some point, somebody must have backing a truck and hit the back wall or pushed something in the back wall, and they wound up breaking the structural members. And the building was condemned for a while, so they moved to the old Station 3 down next to the post office. And that's where it had the dirt floor, which they finally paved, and we just had the upgrade money for. When they shut that one down, they put a bathroom in there finally, and a shower, and started lining the floors, got a exhaust system in there and things. And this building was sufficiently patched so it could be used for storage, and that's what they've been doing with this. It's been a storage building. But I haven't walked in there. I have no idea what he's getting in there, how much, but I can't
Yeah.
imagine.
So, I mean, one of the goals for him is to clean out that building, to separate what is needed, what we have to keep, and what can be tossed. But I think structurally, that building is just not in good shape. I don't know if it would be worth investing in any repairs that would be necessary. But I think that if we could use the ARPA funds and get a steel building, something that's gonna last a long time, and suit the needs of the department, we can get one that is built that has potentially a garage door or something that, that could really suit the needs of the department better than an old schoolhouse.
The building's never struck me as structurally unstable, so I'd like to have Bill have a look at that before we talk about it not being a serviceable building. I think if it needs any work, it's not that extreme. I don't, however, know the condition of the roof right now, because that can be expensive, but the structure itself, it's been a big old building, it's been a good building. We've used to have meetings upstairs, you have 50, 60 people up there, and it certainly served the town well for a lot of years, and I'd hate to see us abandon it. And so, of course, we still have the fire station committee out there, and if we are replacing the building eventually, I don't know yet if they're recommending one station for all or keeping our South Barre Station. But if we do keep it South Barre Station, we're gonna need some kind of modification at some point in a major way to something down there, because those buildings are really insufficient. But before we jump forward with a $50,000 container or a steel
Yeah.
building like that, it
I'm
might be
not-
better, it might be better to put the money into that building and make it
Well, I don't think we're
fully
making a
usable.
recommendation. You're just saying that this is some things people said,
Yes.
and this is what we think might qualify if we
Right.
decided we needed it.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm not looking for the board to make a decision tonight, I'm just
Okay.
looking to start the conversation on what conversations I've had. There's still a lot more conversations that need to be had.
I personally look at the money that would be available to us, it's $1.6 million. And we have to spend it by, I think it's December 24, 26 now, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, by 2024, we have to have a plan for the money.
Yeah.
By 2026, we need to have
Right.
the money.
So I really am all about saying, let's think about a plan. If we have the fire building project, I hope that that's going to move forward in a positive way. I think that this is a one-time opportunity. Let's not screw it up. That's the way I look at it. I mean, I look at, the tents that are, might be useful to us come the anniversary, the 200, put a lot of, but they're just hanging around outside in a bunch of dirt. Some stuff like that we probably do need some more storage in the town, just period. I don't know if, where we put it.
Those tents are not indoors.
I believe
There's nowhere to put them indoors.
they're thrown in a heap covered with, you would be embarrassed if you went down there.
I'm going to be upset when I go down there, and we're going to have some chats with some people, because we.
Well, I don't know.
There's places to put them.
I don't know if there's places to put them or not, but my concern is,
There's places to put
the
'em.
stuff that we have, we should be, attending to. The HVAC systems, well, whether it be in the library, whether it be in the school, I think the schools are in good shape in that respect. I don't think we have to worry about that. But that was one big COVID issue. So, maybe it's building safety, what are going to be our themes to utilize this money
Right.
that would be appropriate? Because, the town should hold us accountable to this. Like, what should we be using this money for, and how do we make our community stronger and more serviceable to our townsfolk? And when we don't, we're paying for this, all of us are paying for this in taxes, it's just we're not paying them in local taxes. But, boy, this is a one-time opportunity, and I'm really saying, let's think about this really carefully. Like, we could just blow it all in fire trucks and ambulances. I just don't know if that's our best use of this money. We should have every building, we should think about every building, what does it need? How do we ensure that it is more serviceable, and that the money that this become an investment effort on our part, and one that the community can, be assured that we're doing our utmost best to do the right thing. And I agree, when you look at this, there's lots of other things that I think will be eligible on this.
Right.
So,
So,
I know that rapid response vehicle is something that people chatted about, and I know there were grants and
Yes.
stuff with it, and we may be able to augment a grant with this money or whatever, but,
right.
so I'm just hopeful that we can get a lot more direction from the feds, so that, even if we have to make phone calls, and they come up with a plan that we're really, really want to embrace.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so, the fire truck, the ambulance, the rapid response vehicle, again, those are just conversations that I had with Chief Rogowski, and he said, if this money could be used towards apparatus, that would be really important, just because it's so hard to get a grant for a vehicle. We tried with the rapid response
Yep.
vehicle, it was unsuccessful. He tries every year. For
And
the
that
fire
might,
truck,
and that might be
it's
an
unsuccessful.
excellent use.
Right.
It's just that I want to make sure when we finally make the decision on these monies, that we do so with clear heads and understanding that people will say, oh yeah, this is well thought out, this makes
Right.
sense. We're not going to please all the people, but I hope that we can at least do our very best to position the town to have, some things that we couldn't afford on our own.
Right.
I think the 2/3 of this money to just spend, as you said, without return or future, we're just spending it. I don't like that.
Right.
Upgrading this building, that's probably not an unwise thing to do. This
Well,
building has not had a serious update. Windows, air conditioning, heat system, this does need, and this is the town's.
But you could spend the whole $1.6 million on this building.
Well, we don't want to do that.
I'm not saying we should.
We don't want to do that either, but certainly new windows and work in the HVAC system is reasonable. Structurally, it's a good building,
Yeah.
but I'm not talking about gutting it and renovating it,
No.
but it needs some upkeep. Premium pay for the police department, what is that?
Well, you can give bonuses for the fact that people worked during the pandemic, and that would, and I absolutely, not ready to do anything like that, because you can't pick out one employee and say, they deserve it, you don't. And because that will just be and especially with the union to battle with,
We have our union negotiation, we have our contracts.
I mean,
when they
and I
work
don't mean
extra,
to
they get overtime.
diminish the work that they did, believe me, but I know just throwing premium money out would be really difficult.
No, I don't like that at all.
But that is eligible under.
Because there'd be other people that would probably be eligible to save premium money, and that, people think that, and we addressed this during COVID. First of all, we didn't consider laying anybody off like people did. We didn't want to charge anyone sick leave for their COVID, not worry about sick bank time. The money's allocated, they're going to get paid, and they're going to work from home. And people think, oh, you work from home, that's a joke.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever tried to work from home when you have family and kids around,
Yeah.
it's a very difficult and stressful thing to do. You feel the weight of your work, you feel the things you need to get done, and your family is there pulling at you, because the kids don't know the difference. But yeah, they're working from home is difficult, and we could say DPW had to work every day,
Mhm.
but at least they get to have normalcy.
And
They
the
get
police,
to go to work every
and the
day.
police worked every day, I'm sure, and then some.
Right, but we also changed them. We changed
No,
into
I
groups
know.
and series. So everyone changed, but everyone worked, and everyone
Yeah.
did their part. And so I don't want to see premium pay. Fire apparatus. I'm still hoping that as marijuana money does come in, even if it's enough to cover payment amounts, the reality is, have you visited Iandoli's?
Mhm.
Okay. how do you like to drive up there? And, okay.
Well, I think that's by design.
But,
isn't it?
but imagine right now, if he'd have an issue up there for emergency services right now, with all this wet, trying to bring a fire truck up that road.
Oh, I
It's-
think.
There's only one that'll
I think-
make it, and that's engine 2, because it's all-wheel drive, and that would still struggle. We do need to get an all-wheel drive fire truck to deal, we're building these remote facilities and building more, with the Higgins
Well, they
company.
also have an obligation to make the roads passable.
Right. But I'm saying it's
In
good.
fairness.
It's, for our benefit as a town, we talk about $500,000 for another fire truck.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still supposed to take the money that comes in on a host agreement for these marijuana grows, is supposed to be spent for expenses caused by marijuana. And an all-wheel drive fire truck is an expense we haven't needed till now. And it's a good way to make sure we take advantage of that marijuana money without, and
Well, you-
maybe take something
well,
off
I-
the tax levy, because we
Yeah,
can.
well, at
So I
best,
would, so I hate to fund it this way, I hope we can fund it.
well, at best, the marijuana money is sort of a pipe dream at this point, I mean, we're talking maybe 10, 15 grand a year. I mean, maybe we can make a payment.
Yeah, I expect that even Dean's facility was a low run this year, that his number will go up. When he does build another facility, go up more.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
And he's, we're talking 10,000 square feet versus 100,000 square foot outside grow. Now, even at 10,000, 3 grows is 30,000 square feet. If he's not even growing that much, his grow's like 6 or something, or it's very much smaller, the grow area he does. They're gonna grow 100,000 square feet outside. They're gonna get a large crop, and they should be able to produce some
On a
revenues
year,
and give us.
yeah, but you think about this July, would you like all your money up on what Higgins, 110,000 grow? They are drowning.
Yeah.
I mean, because I talked with
It's gotta be
Higgins.
very difficult with
Yeah,
marijuana. I think
yeah,
that's,
'cause
they
I
like
would-
moisture, but I don't think that much.
I agree with you. And because when I talked with Ronnie Higgins and so forth before I was, elected, I said, talk to me about what are you trying to do, what are you trying to accomplish? And I said, well, are you going to insure your crops? Because, I mean,
I don't know if you can.
Well, I don't know either. And so he said he didn't think so, and I said, well, if you have a really dry year, you're in trouble. I didn't even contemplate this kind of a year.
Who could contemplate this? We have
Yeah,
had this in a
so
long
I'm
time.
just saying that, no matter what person's trying to grow what, it's been a tough year
Yeah.
so far. I mean, lots of
Yeah.
green, but not much fruit and stuff yet.
Yeah.
So
And
I just look at it as, I think we have to be realistic about what the marijuana, businesses are going to produce for us over time, maybe. But
Right.
we're talking
Keep
about
in touch with-
multi-years away from.
Keep in mind for future HCA's and making sure that emergency vehicles can access these places. Maybe we can build that into our agreements in the
Right,
future.
but
Get ahead of this.
there's nothing wrong for us if these HCA's do produce something like in the future, let's say they do bring in $150,000 a year. We're hard pressed to spend that in stuff that we can prove is marijuana related. But if we have a fire truck and you took a 10-year bond and we got $50,000 a year from the marijuana fillers, it could very realistically fund that. So I don't think it's, I'm not counting on it. We're not banking on it and buying a
No,
truck
I
right
agree.
now. But I think we're gonna find, before we spend that money out of this, on the truck, I think because we have a new engine 4. 6 is getting old, but it's still good. Ladder's been renewed a couple decades of the last one, but engine 1 and 5 they're old. One's been newer, but 5's probably got to go. They got to get another engine soon.
Well, you know.
But not this year.
Yeah.
And I think if we see some funds come in and we do demonstrate that money's in that ballpark, we can look at a bond for that truck accordingly that we can cover with that expense.
I agree.
And it's a way that I think we can safely spend it, that I don't think we'll have any pushback from the state to spend it on that type of vehicle.
No, it's
So
not.
I'm not trying to say, marijuana's our cure-all here.
Oh,
but
God, no.
I do think an expense like this, that's a pretty big hit.
Well,
When
it's
we
a-
vote for it.
yeah.
And I think we can keep it off the warrant by funding it that way. So this is, that's what I say, I wouldn't consider that here.
Mm-hmm.
The ambulance, I'd rather see fund through ambulance receipts, because that has to be like vehicle purchases. If we can't replace them within our budget on a regular basis, I don't want to start special buying, because then you get the false sense that, instead of spending $250,000 in the ambulance and finding it this year in the budget, suddenly we have an extra $250,000 because this money came in. Then next year, we're used to spending it, and we're going to be going, where are we going to get that $250,000 from? So we have to really, I think, try to keep these typical items that we have to budget in a manner that we have to budget. And
Well, I
we look
think-
at, like you said, special projects, things that are going to benefit the town, building infrastructure, building, cable and
And we're
internet,
going to
better
have
water,
to
sewer.
regionalize more services, including the schools.
Yeah.
The schools are working at it, you know, but any little town that's around is, you know, they want to stay as little as they possibly can.
Right.
And, you know, so we're going to have to do some more of that, for sure.
Right. We have time, and I look to see the list of options grow when we
Well,
get
I just want to
direction,
see what,
but-
you know, finally, when the fire building comes in and they say this is a potential cost, and depending on what the economy's doing at that time, what is that going to mean for us as far as, you know, looking at, because that'll be our big, because the Ruggles Lane bond is close to being
Yeah,
over.
that can be a 20-year bond, but it's
Yeah.
still going to be significant. And whether we
Well,
do
it may
an
be
override
significant,
or-
but I mean, the bond, we got to get a bond rating. We got to get our act together
Yeah,
financially,
we were
and
talking about that today.
yeah, and I spent some time, you know, with the financial team, working on the audit stuff, and I think we made some
We will
progress.
definitely address that in a little bit.
You know, and so my concern is, you know, if interest rates stay low, I mean, as a municipality, we need that bond rating, we need to buy the damn thing on a bond.
Right.
Um,
And like Jessica said, we're still a ways off from getting, we'll definitely cover that in our selecting reports, but,
Yeah.
sorry, Jessica, go ahead and finish.
Sorry, Jessica.
We
So
sidetracked a little bit.
basically,
Excuse me, Floyd.
Hold on a minute, do you have more, Jessica?
No, I mean, everything that's listed on here, like I said, they were the beginning of our conversations. You know, I think that Chief Carbone had a good argument for having premium pay for the officers, and we included, obviously, all of the fire and EMS staff, along with, you know, Tony Mobilio, just because of the work that they did during the pandemic, and there were a lot of other departments that paid that premium pay during the pandemic, whereas our staff really didn't get
Paid
much
the
extra.
premium pay in what way? How was that done?
you mean other towns?
Yeah, in other
Oh.
communities, so for example, you know, if a staff member worked 8 hours, they would get paid for like 12 hours.
Well, mandatory time and a half. Once you've worked
That's
your
one-
40 hours, you can do that.
Right, well, that's.
But as I've understood in our discussion, when I referred to, we had an officer issue before, is we were told we can't special pay, premium pay, bonus pay personnel as a town. So that's, once again, going to be a labor council issue. I don't think we can just bonus pay them in single amount.
Well, in this, using the ARPA funds, we can.
I was going to say, this is not general fund money, so
No.
it should have different
Well,
allocations.
they list it as
but-
one of the things you can do with it, and they don't just say police, they say
Right.
anybody.
Right,
Okay.
well, actually, so.
But that's why I want to talk, because I'm saying, we were told before by council, we cannot just bonus or premium and acknowledge we can't do it. But
Okay.
that's
Right.
general fund money is general fund money. That's a town's,
Yeah, so there are exclusions
Voted
on
funds.
who can qualify for premium pay. They can't have worked from home. So all of the town hall staff, anybody who worked from home would be disqualified from getting premium pay, because it's really focused on the people who were on scene within, you know, working within a public setting for the entirety of the pandemic. So there are limitations on who we can pay with this.
so there's a perfect example for Tony. If we have trouble with the 45 hours, you can
Well,
go
see,
the other way with it.
the concern that I have, just be awfully careful of what we're going to do as far as making a precedent that we don't want to live with. Because you've
As
got,
we said, this is a one-time thing.
well, it's a
And-
one-time
and
thing,
we've
but,
got to do
you know,
smart
when you
things
say
about it.
you got unions to worry about as far as, you know,
Yeah.
is this negotiable, isn't it negotiable or not? It's an issue about relative to working conditions. Then you have, okay, the entire Quabbin regional staffing pattern. Got to be 350 people who worked every day, not from home, with the kids, blah, blah, blah. Then you're going to get that whole push on their side,
A lot of
saying,
them work from home. They were in with the kids some, but I don't think.
no, trust me. They were in the building all the time with the kids. The elementary and the high
Elementary
school
was
staff.
like that.
And the high school staff too. The kids
Well,
came
that's right, they broke the schedules up, didn't
Yeah.
they? So they had some kids in half days here,
Yes.
other kids in then.
because they
and-
couldn't have too
and-
many in a room at one time.
Right, so they did some
you
Zoom from
get
home,
all
but they
that, and
did-
so I would just say, be careful what we wish for with that, because it's,
Doesn't the school receive similar funds?
they do.
So that's up to them, how they do it with
Well,
their employees.
You and I both know, once we say, we're going to do this, okay, instead of them doing stuff that then they're going to ask us to do, like do HVAC stuff in their schools, do this and that. We say, well, no, we pay the teachers all premiums. And I have a daughter who's a teacher, yeah, pay her a premium. But I'm saying, I don't know, I'm just nervous about that. How do you come up with this premium? Do we say everybody who worked 8 hours is going to get paid for 12 every day?
Oh, no.
I mean, we can't. So do you say, okay, everybody gets, I don't know, $100 a week? I'm just very nervous when you get into that whole premium deal, because everybody thinks they work harder than the next guy anyway.
Mhm.
And
It's very easy to see what you do and hard to necessarily understand someone else's perspective
Exactly,
and what they're doing. 'Cause
exactly.
nobody, so you try to tell people, worry about yourself, not others, but then when
Well,
it
I
comes to
know.
the money, they always worry what everyone else is
well,
getting.
I'm just saying that
Luckily, we do have a couple of years till it has to be spent.
Yes, we
so
do.
we have
So-
some time to think about this.
and I'm not saying that.
I'm not thrilled with this list at this point, that's for sure.
Well, no,
If
this
we're
is-
limited to this, I'd be going, oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You
no,
know.
this
Well-
definitely will change, and like I said, I'm continuing to do more research, and there's luckily a lot bigger cities than us that have published plans and
Well,
will
good, we can
continue
take a
to
look
publish
at.
plans. I mean, we haven't seen any money yet. Like, the money is still floating out there and
in-
whatever.
in Governor Baker's land.
Yeah, exactly.
He's got
So
it.
we don't have anything to spend at this point, so it's still about having diligent conversations,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely just keeping an eye on what's going on around the country.
Yeah, and I like what Dr. Marshall says about projects that'll be meaningful for the town and the town's future, other than just spending
Yeah.
these funds. I'd like to see something to show for it that's gonna last. Like, yeah, we got this money, and here's what we got out of it. Look, it's gonna be there, and we're gonna have it, and we're gonna use it and utilize it. Not like, oh yeah, we had that car, it's gone now, and we gave people some extra pay, and,
And I'm not saying that I'm absolutely opposed to it. I'm just saying that is a dangerous trip down that.
it is, it's a slippery slope. And
Because how do you, just because, like you said, somebody worked at home and they've got 2 little kids at home and they're trying to do their job,
And-
plus,
And the feds already said they're not eligible.
yeah.
And you can look at the ambulance personnel who transport COVID patients
Yeah.
daily.
And same thing with
And you want to
police.
talk about, well, they're involved and they're not transporting them. But I mean, these guys got to sit in the back ambulance with
I
these
know,
guys.
I know.
No one, knock on wood, had issues with it, but
I agree.
it's
So-
still, that's literally putting yourself
Yeah.
out there.
So, and I mean,
And,
they look at the people who worked in all the grocery stores, nobody,
They had no choice.
and they're not getting in premium pay, trust me.
Oh, they're not getting premium pay.
And, so I'm just concerned that if we go the premium pay route, we have got to be very cautious about it.
Indeed.
And no matter how we do it,
I think we've been.
everybody's gonna worry about what the other guy got.
I think we've been working hard with all of our agreements.
Yeah.
With the collective bargaining agreements with the unions, and even still with the town employees, as we've adjusted some salaries that have been out of sync.
Yeah, and hope to.
For a while.
And hope to do some
And-
more, yeah.
And, we're trying to be very reasonable and fair to all the employees,
Yeah.
and we appreciate all the employees. And I do worry if you single out anyone and pay them, it's gonna make issues like they're being treated special, and I don't want to do that.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I think we're fair. I think we've worked hard. Ever since I've been in here, I've been watching, Andrew especially go through, working on these pay scales and the job titles and trying to make people's job description fit what they do, because what they were hired for is not at all what they're doing anymore. And then look at that new title and compare it to other municipalities and make the salary fit and come up with reasonable pay scales, because the pay scales hadn't been adjusted, I think, in 18 years. So there's been a lot done towards that end, and I think this could be, as you said, very disruptive towards it.
And not only disruptive, we can't repeat it,
No, you can't,
Because-
and we know that.
yeah.
But,
But I mean, there may be some, like you say, when we look at some other plans and some other opportunities, maybe there are things that we don't see now that will make sense to us over time. But I'm really concerned that.
they're
this-
very vague.
Yeah, this is a very important opportunity for us, or challenge for us, to try to put together the plan that makes the most sense for our community moving forward.
Right. Dylan?
I wonder if at some point we should put together a working group or a subcommittee to plan on, because this is some serious money and it's going to take a lot of time and care and thought and consideration.
We may get to that point. I think honestly, we're best suited to decide which direction we want to go. It's going to require input from all the department heads and from the citizens and what we do with the money. But I think we're best suited to keep tight hold of how this is done. And for now, until we have some direction, this is just, you're kind of saying, we know we can do this. And that's not what, and I think any of us saw for this. I still see internet with this. I still see some way of,
Well, you can definitely use it for internet. That's one of the major things that they allow.
And if that means we decide we can go on some of these back roads where they don't want to run the wires, that we can trench and lay pipe and have our own system, that we can lease a charter for $1 for a year so they'll pick it up and give service to people, then that's the way we can really help the community. And when you bring those lines out down those roads, and all you gotta do is pop up ahead and put a connection
Well, you
in.
make it sound so simple. I'm hoping you're right. It seems very simplified.
Well, you'd have.
Something like that is a great way that we can use this
But yeah.
once in a century.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
you can
yeah.
you can run that cable underground to a certain point, but that, it's gonna take working with charter to see where it's smart to bring it up.
Yeah.
Because you can't just take the existing ground, cut it, and just,
Yeah.
you probably can, but it's not that's not gonna be simple. But if you pop out every so often at road junctions and certain telephone poles, they can take it from there and
Yeah,
connect
yeah.
to people without saying, yeah, we gotta run 12 poles and this and pay these fees and all the cable connectors. It's there for them. And that's gonna help. We also talk about, we go back to the development plan that the planning board had. Well, there's all these existing lots on all these roads, but no one touches them because, there's no cable, there's no phone, there's, power might be there sometimes, but no one else runs any services out there. There's no water, there's no sewer. And the expense to build and the lack of services really deters anybody from wanting to put a house up because they're not gonna get top dollar for it.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing I think is gonna help us develop the community. And, I've said many times I'd like to see a senior housing complex in town, but if they can't have internet, how are they gonna build one? I mean, that's something to be heavily relied on. We need to make sure it's available.
Okay.
We'll find out. Let's hope it's not 3 years from now when they finally tell us how to use it. No others for today. Sam, you have a comment on that topic before we leave it?
I'm glad that you mentioned lastly, because I was here also to advocate for the people who do not have internet and who have had difficulty during this and are still having difficulty. And with all the talk about this new gradient, a new type of disease. that
Oh, yeah,
people-
the Delta.
Delta
Delta
that
variant.
people are getting sick from that make everybody very frightened. We may be subject to another problem, and we may be masked again.
Yeah.
And we may be asked to stay home again. So I don't know what it costs to get internet, but I think that there needs to be a way. Now, I see on the internet much advertisement for ability to get internet without,
With the satellite?
with some other methods.
Yeah, well, they're not very good.
I'm not familiar with them at
Yeah.
all.
Well, some people do have them in the community, and you can't live stream on them. You can't.
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
you have experience.
You need.
Hotspots.
Yeah, you need to create a hotspot with your phone, and the
that
data just
stinks.
It slaps the
gone.
phone.
And, you know.
I'm not,
It's-
I'm unfamiliar, but I know that everybody, and I remember not this last town meeting, but the previous
Yeah.
town meeting, people were incensed that they had such difficulty
Yeah.
without internet teaching their children, and they have to go to someone else's house to use it. I think that would be a very, very, very good priority. And maybe if we could take some of that money that we spent on those tents and put it towards internet and give the tents back, that might be a real coup.
Thank you, Sam.
Well,
To touch on that briefly, we did check, we weren't allowed to use any of those last COVID funds on internet, so that's why we had to find ways that we thought were useful. And I'm still hoping that those tents will have use in the town. When we do functions in the common, when we do winter functions in the common, if we can get back down using Felton Field, I know the police will have a function like they do annually, and I've already talked to Chief Carbone. I'm hoping he'll get hold of one of those tents. And what I'd like to talk about on the tent topic is, I'd like to try to get those indoors in buildings. My intention was, we got them, there's certainly got to be room downstairs in the senior center that we can store one there.
They're pretty huge.
They're huge, and they're incredibly heavy.
Well,
But they're self-contained, like they're in a weatherproof
Well, I wouldn't
big
say they're
bag
in
or
a,
something?
well,
Separate, should be separate parts. The pipes were heavy gauge pipes on purpose to be solid tents. And yeah, if you try to move the whole thing, it's gonna be very heavy, but to carry individual pipes, there's probably 30 pieces of pipes. You take 3 at a time and 10 trips a truck, you've got them, and it's gonna take a couple of people to move a canvas or maybe use a machine to
loader.
move it, but certainly down like the public safety building, there's double bay for the ambulance and we keep the brush truck in there. There's still plenty of room behind that, I
oh,
would think.
you haven't seen a
Not
big.
for these
You have,
tents.
the
There's
thing,
no-
the thing that, having been, we used to do graduation, and we used to do the tents over the entire,
Right, that
okay,
giant,
people,
yeah.
okay, giant tents. And you have to have special permits to put them up. You have to have rigging crews that have certifications to put them
Right,
up.
we specifically avoided that we were careful with the tent purchase size. Going with our 20 by 30s, it avoids all permits unless we're gonna enclose them. And we do have 3 sets of enclosures, I believe. And to enclose them, what we would need is 2 fire exit signs and 2 fire extinguishers.
Well,
And just
I'm
make
just
sure
saying,
the
well, you
aisleways
got, you
are
got
open, so.
to, I mean, when you see them,
We-
you're
we-
gonna
we-
run screaming
yeah.
from the place, I'm
We
telling you.
researched it before we did it to make sure it useful, and we were certainly concerned if we were gonna have another town meeting outside, that we
Yeah.
wanted to give people the ability to be out of the rain or out of
Yeah.
the wind if we had it again. And thankfully, we had it indoors instead. I still think those tents, when we find a way to utilize them, at some point, we're gonna have to set up a day where we set one up and have the
Yeah.
department heads come do it. We set some tents up so everyone gets a hand at it and gets involved and understand it. Because if it does come a time when we have a health emergency and we need those tents for decontamination or for temporary shelter from whatever, we need people that know how to set them up and are trained how to do it. And we need to
Well-
work on that so we can use what we do have. And there's still certainly things that can be lendable to other towns. Other towns have functions too. There's no reason we can't lend them a tent and make use of these instead of letting them sit. And they should be useful items. It's a useful
Rent
size.
sounds better than lend, but it's okay.
Yes, but once again, it's.
Well, no, I'm
I'd rather
just
see-
saying that there are things like that, around, that we have to make sure we find places to store things properly.
Right.
Because that level of, I don't know how much they cost, but I'm guessing just to rent one is really expensive when you're.
20 by 30, it's I would think a couple $100 to rent a 20 by 30. That's
To-
not a
to
huge.
rent one?
It's not a huge tent.
Geez, when
It's really
my
not.
daughter was getting married, then they really were ripping us off.
When you
Let me
get-
just say.
But once
You
again,
didn't
if you-
have a 20 by 30, you probably had one of those big
Yeah.
function hall size
and
ones,
then
right?
they're different. Then it requires a crew to set them up. They have to set them up, so then you just send X number of people to do it, and they have to have the permit and the inspections,
Yeah.
so that does come into a
But-
lot.
but
We
my-
avoided that on
Yeah.
purpose.
Well,
But
well, we just have to find a really good place to store them, even if, and I don't even think you could do them in the back of a, what do you call those, things that they have and haul around with the truck?
yeah, the roll-offs.
Yeah, the roll-offs, I don't even think I think they're that big.
The great space we have is the whole downstairs here, the old ambulance quarters and stuff is not used, but there's no way to get them in here.
Well, this
We
would
took
be,
the bulkheads out so
this
you
would
could
be
get downstairs.
totally inappropriate to throw a
Yeah.
bunch of dirty tents in here. I mean,
Hopefully they're not dirty.
oh,
Don't even tell me.
Stored now.
Don't even tell me.
they're sort of not stored, they're just in the back, they're stored outdoors.
Where?
Down behind the DPW building. And,
Okay.
so my just concern is that, I would hate to see you take this building, which has a lot of opportunity, and throw it as a storage container.
Well, but, no, I'm saying it would be a great place to get them out of the weather, but we couldn't even get them in here. There's no
No,
way to do it,
no,
so.
no.
But
Perhaps we
it
can get a
doesn't mean.
large storage container
Well,
as a
right.
solution.
Well, that's the
I
thing.
mean, it'd have to be a large storage container. to
And
get
that
those
could be,
papers
that
in
and
there.
that could be used for a storage container to protect the property that we do own now. And I don't know, I thought it was two, maybe one gets stored at Ruggles Lane. Maybe-
Where?
I don't know if they have room, that's what I'm saying. I don't know where we would have room that we could put them. I have to seriously look at that, because we've got them now. And we gotta find a way to utilize them and put them out and make them useful, so departments feel free to use them. And, if that means we have, DPW go out and help people set a tent up,
Yeah, but the point, sometimes I feel badly for the DPW people, because there is that expectation that we all have, well, just ask the DPW to do it. Ask the DPW to do
Well,
it.
it's like the fire department. You can name any problem anyone has, who do they call?
Well, I don't know,
Fire department.
I've never
And-
called them for anything, but I
Locked out of the
would just
car,
say,
locked out of the house, have a car accident, somebody
you know,
feels sick, somebody
because
falls down,
we have a
somebody's
couple of
lost.
people who've complained about roads, their roads being, rutted, and they were pretty terrible. I can't even
Yeah.
imagine what they're like now, after the rain. But the DPW has been out straight, I'm guessing, since Saturday night. Lugging and toting and stuff, and all the
And
things.
these roads wash out again and again and again. And
Well,
that's-
they were, yeah, but I'm talking South Street, that was
Yeah.
just a disaster. But anyway, so my concern is to think that we're just gonna be able to call the DPW and say, hey, guys,
Well,
because you're gonna talk about 3 or 4 guys, half a day, minimum, setting that thing up.
oh, no. I'd like to show you the videos online for the company that
Oh.
demonstrate setting one up. It's really, it is a simple process.
Okay,
I think they do
well,
it
we're
with,
just wasting
they do it
town's
with 3 or
time.
4 guys in like a half an hour, 20 minutes. It's not.
Okay, well, you and I can watch
No,
this
we'll-
happen. We'll watch this happen, but
Well, we can
I'm just saying.
get a video for it and show
Yeah.
you, but it was very.
Okay, well, we're wasting, these people's time.
There's a careful selection process we did, that's why we went with that. They were
Okay.
reasonable size and use, but yeah, it's not one person's gonna do it, that's for sure.
Well, I think our ARPA funds, we know we've got them sometime, we know we've got to have a plan, and I think we're all in agreement that we have to do a lot of
Yes.
work to make it a good plan.
So we have approval of meeting minutes for June 3rd, 2021, June 21st, 2021.
I saw no
June
need for
21st.
modifications on June 3, so I would recommend approval on the June 3rd minutes.
I'll second that, that was a motion.
Sure, a motion second to approve June 3rd meeting minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. June 21st meeting minutes.
I would make a motion to approve June 21st.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Jessica, which one did I ask you to make an amendment on? Is it the 28th?
28th.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would approve the executive session, not for release at this time, of June 21st.
Second that?
Motion second to release executive session, approve but not release executive session June 21st. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. In June 28th minutes, and the second to last page, I was quoted as saying that the parking lot paving was not a $50,000 project, but rather a $420,000 project.
Oh, my God.
I request that we amended that to $120,000.
Okay,
With that amendment, I would make a motion to approve those minutes.
second?
All right. Motion second to approve those minutes with that amendment. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't know if you've made it yet or got that out in an email, they knew it, it's,
It's,
that they're changing here.
It's corrected in the packet.
yeah, I wrote it.
Oh, okay,
I
I-
wrote it on all your minutes, so.
Okay. That's, we have no correspondence for now?
No, the only correspondence that we had, I sent to you all in an email, is from DCR regarding, some forestry work that they're gonna do in town. I sent you guys the link to the website and then descriptions on the little things that they were gonna do in town.
I can give an update on that, because that was part of what they did at the meeting, at the watershed meeting. Basically, they pick an area they trying to do, I think they said 10% a year of their forestry, or they try to basically deforest it. They strip it out, the pine trees and things, and try to encourage growth of the smaller trees, the natural hardwood trees.
That's what they did
underneath.
up on 62?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. So they take, there's certain acres of land, pieces of land, so many acres defined here and there, and they're basically gonna clear cut the pines before they become an issue and start to break and fall over and clog
Yeah.
everything up. They clear cut them, chip them, get them out of there, and try to encourage your groves of the other trees that would be around naturally, like the oaks and the maples and things like that. That was one thing that was questioned out, and I expressed it correctly, I believe. Dylan did hear those too at the meeting.
Yeah, and they're doing a tour of the lots, do you recall?
They were doing it for the September meeting. I don't remember the date they said they were gonna do it. Right?
August
Or
19th.
was it August meeting? No, August meeting. They were doing it for August meeting because September's the one they pushed back. But they were gonna do a tour of the lots if people wanted to see it,
Okay.
for the watershed and people there. But we could contact the Ware River Watershed Committee if you were interested and see when they were touring those lots and go visit it.
Which I look forward to doing,
Okay.
if I can make it.
Okay. They'd be interested in, they get into that stuff. And at that meeting, the DCR was there, present, and a representative from Senator Goby's office. Thankfully, Jessica called them, and they went out. They said if Jessica hadn't called them, they wouldn't have known about it. And DCR was giving an update on the closing of the entrance down here, 122, and the demolition of the prison camps. They were coming to give you the update on that.
Ew.
And they said, well, we're just put on hold for now, because we have a new director and no direction yet, so it's just on hold. We don't know what's going to continue and when. So Senator Goby's representative that was there said, well, we generated a $50,000 grant for the preservation of that and the upkeep of that. So clearly, the intent is to preserve it and upkeep it, not to demolish it. DCR was very interesting to watch how they presented it. They seemed to want to give the impression that they still wanted to go through and they were going to get the permission later. And the representative that was a former selectman in Rutland is now in the Historic Society, wanted to let the public know that he's already started the process of the paperwork with the state to have that deemed historical. Most people consider it historical, but until somebody actually goes to the state and says, we need to label this, it doesn't get done. So the lack of a designation as a historical site now is not because it isn't, it's just because nobody's asked. And he had some interesting points to point out that I don't recall which, unfortunately, a former second lady of the United States, was it born there or died there?
Born there.
Born there. And a co-rider from Paul Revere during his famous ride was buried there in a cemetery there. So there are some, federally significant issues going on there. They should guarantee that we can get this designated historic. And then further, if that is achieved, they plan to go for federal designation. So that's what they were saying there. It was good to hear that from him. And I did just relay that, without talking about town business, that our board did forward a letter of support for keeping those open, as a matter of fact, so that the committee understood that we had done that. And otherwise, they did talk about the 122 closure and had the same answer to say that, well, we're waiting for direction from our new director. And I indicated that, the roads there, speaking as an individual, not as for a selectman, I was clear about that for him, that a lot of people utilize that area. And we do have a cemetery up off a side road off of that outlet. And this was town property until this land was seized for watershed. It's not our fault we've lost access to the cemetery if they shut the road. So it's important to us to keep it open. It's important for a lot of people who go there. Like my neighbor goes there, he has some difficulty walking. He likes to go there to fish with his grandkids. He can drive right up, he can get out of his car, and he can fish. And where they're proposing to do a new site is way off in the woods, and you're going to have to walk, an eighth of a mile downhill on a rough trail to get to an area that you might be able to fish. And that area is full of trash and garbage. And I suggested that DCR, since they took the land, they might have the responsibility of upkeeping it. And they should consider maybe posting somebody there like they would at any other state reservation, and check people in and check people out, and maybe make sure the land stays clear, so we don't have kids running in there drinking and toting. There's a mattress out there and there's trash out there, and they're failing to upkeep the land. Closing it isn't the solution, but making an effort on their part to upkeep it should be. And I think that coincides like with the prison camp, with the state saying they have money to maintain and that restore and maintain the prison camps. They certainly seem to be saying the same thing. They want you to take care of the properties you've taken, not just shut them down and shut them off to the public. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that.
DCR rep did mention that $50,000 might be used to potentially offset their staffing problems.
Oh.
Well, DCR didn't say that, but Goby's representative said that might be where some of that money could be used for, and making sure that there's another staff member or two with DCR so they can keep tabs on the location, if that's a gatekeeper type person.
And I believe someone in the audience asked, there's a young lady that asked, well, can't some of those funds be spent, for the cleanup or for posting, to tell people to stay away from this or whatever? And DCR says, well, we don't know, we don't have any direction from it. And the rep said, you were given $50,000 under your control to refurbish it and do the site. It's your control, it's your direction.
For XYZ, signage, etc.
The direction is clear, and they were being very resistant. It was very strange. They were really, they didn't seem pleased that they
Had a crowd.
that they had the stoppage put in, and It didn't really seem they wanted to maintain it. So I would suggest we keep an eye on this and the public pay attention. This one snuck up on us. They asked for use of our building. We approved it for the watershed committee. We had no idea at the time their agenda included DCR on these topics. And so we're gonna have to pay attention to, and hopefully Jess can do that with us too, and keep us posted when they meet, what their agendas are, because the public was very interested last time they met, which is prior to COVID. There was, I believe, over 100 people in
yeah.
attendance,
Yeah.
and we struggled to have probably 25 down in that room the other day because nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
So,
Their next meeting, is already posted September
they pushed it, they kept pushing it back.
September 9th,
They
maybe?
kept pushing it back because they couldn't get people to come together, but it'll be posted on their site for the Ware River Watershed. Okay, select board reports. Other than that, that's what I was gonna contribute for today.
Okay, I just have a brief comment that at a previous meeting, we discussed that I would be meeting with the financial team just to talk about the audit and findings and to begin to put together a plan for addressing any concerns that the auditor had brought to our attention. Jessica and I had a very long, maybe 2-hour meeting with the finance team on Thursday, and I think made some good progress. We're going to be, obviously, one of the major recommendations of the auditor is that we get one financial management system, and obviously that is of import to us. And so we will be addressing that by inviting in a number of potential vendors that would like to, talk to us about Munis and other particular, financial management systems that would work in a community our size. So we'll start there, and we also are doing working with some individuals within the department, figuring out how do we do a better job in making sure when we begin to, input data that there is a checks and balance system. And so people were amenable to talking about, how we could do that. And so I think it was a very good first meeting, and we're off and running. And hopefully we'll have very specific information for you with financial management systems, because ultimately you'll have to agree to pay for whatever the financial management system might cost us. And
Did you keep notes during that?
we have a summary of the meeting that Jessica will be filing so that you can see the summary. I don't know if we call it minutes.
This was a meeting with the auditor as well, or no?
No, the auditor
Okay.
was not there. We had, I know you've talked with the auditor, so you.
Because we found in the past, they are willing to come out
Oh,
and
yeah,
meet with you
absolutely.
too as well.
And I think once we get to the point where we really understand all the nuance of what the auditors have recommended, we will, beyond that, we're determined that we will get too close to, close to getting that bond rating that we need. It will not happen in 1 year. It's going to take a couple of efforts on our part because of our late, kind of closing of various accounts in the past. So we're on it, and I can be as pushy as I need to be, and Jessica can be right there pushing with me. And I think we have people who want to do the right thing, and I think there's been a real issue about getting away from the 3 financial management systems. You're comfortable with A, you're comfortable with B, I'm comfortable with C, and so then we try to merge the stuff at the end, and that's really a big holdup in the system. And that's one of the first things they want us to get on and fix. So we hope to get that done within the next several months, to get the vendors in here and then pick one, and then the training starts. So I would suspect that if the new financial management system, while it may be chosen in January, will not be operational until we go to the next fiscal year.
Mhm.
Because trying to do it during during a fiscal
And it
year.
may be that you wind up choosing one of the most likely 2 systems, not of the 3, but
Well, we will.
the treasurer and
we-
accountant
we will
system
definitely
seems to
choose
be-
one.
Well, there was a soft right with the accounting
Yeah.
and
Vadar?
and
Vadar.
Vadar with the treasurer. We did have a discussion a little over a year ago, and the treasurer was very insistent on pushing for Vadar, and everyone uses Vadar but the accountant, and we had a real conflict between the treasurer and
Yeah,
accountant on
well,
that issue, and then the
They now
accountant.
have a real conflict with
But
the auditor, so we're gonna go with one
The
financial
accountant
management
exposed at
system.
that point that, no, we don't have 2 systems, we have 3,
Three.
because, and that sort of stopped that dead in the tracks. She had good reasons for wanting to have the things entered by hand to her
Yeah.
system. The complaint by the treasurer at the time was that, well, we just don't have the time to go re-enter all these things in the system, it's time consuming. And of course, the accountant said, it's not a time consuming thing, you give me the numbers, I'll enter myself, I'm not
Mhm.
worried about it. So it was frustrating trying to cope with this before. I didn't like the idea of moving it before because they were trying to force the accountant to move to their software. And the reasons they were giving us weren't valid. And it was frustrating to say, well, it's because we have to enter all this data. And the accountant said, well, you sort of generate these reports and there's just 6 numbers I need put into these ledger books, is all. I can enter them. And well, you guys make it sound like it's the end of the world. And this is why I get held up before, and this is why I opposed it before. But once again, it has been a constant concern.
Of the auditors.
Of the auditor. And the concern, the other major concern because of this isn't that, yes, we're late with our books, and that makes, we've been talking for 4 years since I've been in about, we have to have these books balanced every month. We've got to be month by month. We should, at least by the end of July, June should be done, a month out. We shouldn't,
Well,
that was a goal. We didn't even get there.
Well,
And it's
the thing of
been
it-
frustrating.
Yeah, but,
And all the turnover hasn't helped.
yeah,
But
but it will be done.
But the concern, the bigger concerns that people understand is not just that we're getting our free cash certified late, because, we're getting it done just barely when we need to have it done to get our audit done. But the potential for fraud when you don't have good constant allocation of your funds. And these departments can collect hundreds of dollars,
Oh, yeah.
depending on what they have fees for. And there's no accounting for that. And something I think we need to consider, they talked about people turning over the cash with slips and using a uniform slip. They talked about in the audit. I think we need to make sure that each department, and we need to probably pay for these to get them, we need Town of Barre receipt books that are numbered and registered. So if someone brings in money and pays, they get a registered receipt book that's going to be standard across the board. And everybody will have a receipt from the Town of Barre in a printed form, not a paper filled in the back or off a pile of photocopy what you received and a hand. It's got to be traced in a ledge book, so no one can just disappear the funds. Like, okay, well, here's your receipt for $600. We'll throw that away. I got $600. Not, and believe me, I'm not saying anyone in our town to do that. We did have that years ago.
Well, you have to have sufficient checks and balances.
But you need to make sure
to
it
meet-
can't happen,
Yeah.
and we owe that to the town to make sure that doesn't happen. So-
I agree, and so I would just tell you that, my initial work with the financial group is, I think, positive. No one likes everything, like, no one wants to be the one to, oh, no, we're gonna have to, yeah. But I mean, I think we're all of a mind that we have to get the best financial management system and practices in place without further delay.
It's going to make everything easier. It's going to keep our audit quicker and cleaner.
Absolutely.
It's going to clean up half our audit issues with that. And they kept referring back to that software within the audit,
Yep.
so.
So
I agree, we got to do it. We did talk about this before,
Yep,
bringing someone in and switching over. Then after we had the whole meeting on it, we brought the treasurer in and the accountant in, and we talked about it. And after the meeting, we just dropped the whole topic and said, okay, let's have her enter the numbers, give her the numbers, let her enter, and we'll see if that speeds it up. And that was the last attempt we made to fix it. If we're going to streamline that, we'll just run your batch, get your 6 numbers that's supposed to go to her, hand them to her in a paper, and she can enter them. And apparently that hasn't helped us catch up because we're not caught up. And yet the third system on the collecting end, some of the smaller departments collecting is just another delay in being current. I talked to Ellen before, and I can't cite her exact reason, but she had a problem doing the weekly turnovers. I don't know if it was what.
Ellen,
Glidden.
oh.
Well, the clerk takes in funds for,
Yeah.
licenses and fees and everything.
Well, yeah, but
And-
that's a minor problem compared
well,
to all the other
But still,
problems.
it is one of the same things with a different software and a
But I mean-
different account.
Yeah.
And then getting a check from her account to turn into
Yeah.
that. And the funds transfer, I think it had something to do with how she collected the funds and deposited them into a certain account. Then to get those funds out and transfer them over is where her
Yeah.
hiccup came in a timely manner. And that's something else, probably other departments have it too. If we can't do this every week, we're having a problem. I mean,
Well, I
it's
mean,
got to be our priority to turn these
Yeah.
funds in every week.
Well-
And it's not to people.
Well, we've at least got to start to get the system into which we can, manage all of the input that we have.
Right.
In a standard way, and we have to give training to people who.
Yes.
Because you get to the point, and the question, Jessica and I put, is that we can't or we won't. If we won't, why won't we? If we can't, what do we need? Do we need more training? Do we need some temp services to come in and help us catch up so we can start fresh?
And we have changed this.
Yeah.
This is why we have more help
Yeah.
with the accountant at certain times of the year.
Exactly.
We did that 3 years ago, And this year, we just upped the hours there
Yeah.
because,
Yeah,
and that was a response from us asking those same questions
Yeah,
3 years
so-
ago. Instead of
so-
finger pointing, what you need from us.
exactly. So we're working on that, and I hope to get the vendors in, and I'll keep you appraised every meeting to let you know what meetings we've had, and we'll keep a summary of, notes and stuff, so you can check on that. Obviously, they're just as committed as we are to getting this right. I mean, they don't want to not get it right. They're just, they want
I think it makes it easier
to be
for
heard.
everybody, and I really think it does. And something I've said on other occasions about other things is, if we're not clear of what we expect of them and how we expect it, then how can they follow it?
Exactly.
We haven't given them clear direction. We haven't given them, the right tools to make it easy, and that falls on us.
Yeah.
So if we can get the right tools to them, and we can give them proper direction for what we expect, and our expectations are clear, then we can expect them
Yeah.
to meet those
Yeah.
expectations, but we can't right now.
Well, we're going to do best financial, practice and for governmental agencies. And they're very, individually, they're very familiar with it. And what they need to do is just to get the protocols straightened out and have people really understand, like you say, their expectations, and we should be okay come this time next year. We should be rolling good.
It really doesn't seem that big to overcome and fix, but once you see the potential for fraud and fraud risk, and we don't have a fraud risk analysis, which is the next thing, we're part of that to work on.
Have you ever seen one of those, Jasmine?
Yes, yeah. I have.
Okay, I mean, it's just,
I mean, not one like being conducted by Seeing Final Products.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you know who can really help us with that would be the school district, because they have a very, a lot of
Extensive.
skill and talent in that, and they can kind of give us a little help.
But that's the other piece that's really the side of it, is getting that analysis going, and I think cleaning these issues up, that whenever I see the risk for fraud, you've got to say, not with our personnel, but then again, it wasn't that many years ago that we had exactly that problem happen in town, and it cost the town a lot of money. They'll never recover. And so we'd be irresponsible not to take the right steps. And I think everybody in our financial departments agrees that there's nothing wrong with doing this right and
Yep.
and doing it
No,
above board.
I agree with you, and I think
but
that
we've
people
gotta
are,
set the
people are very
practices.
open-minded and very helpful and eager to kind of get it done, get it over with.
Well, thank you for the extra work in it.
Oh, my
Appreciate it.
pleasure.
Jessica, thank you. Let's look forward to this being off of our annual report soon. Ellen, do you have anything?
No, no further reports today.
Jessica, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much. So over the past couple of weeks since the beginning of the fiscal year, I've started meeting with the Open Space and Recreation Committee. We have to have at least a draft of the report done before February so we can apply for a grant. That's basically a contingency for us to get reimbursed for the first grant that I got for the town. So that's gonna go really well. Basically what we're doing is working with CMRPC to update the old open space and recreation plan, which was done in about 2010. So it has about a 10-year lifespan, so it's not like we're too far off the cuff on getting it updated. The fire station feasibility study, that's going to get underway very soon. We have Chief Rogowski back from his short deployment, so, now that he's back, we can start working on that contract with the Gallant Architecture Studio, who's the contractor that the committee chose to do the study. And that should take about 3 months for them to do the study. So hopefully by December, we'll have a final study and options for our next steps. So the recent weather has been really bad. Luckily I think Barre didn't get the worst of it. I think the central western Mass down where I live got a lot worse weather. A lot more roads are entirely missing.
A lot more water out there.
So, yes, yeah, so luckily, to my knowledge, we didn't have to rescue anybody in boats like other communities have had to do.
Yeah.
So, but my main concern right now, we do have obviously from the town meeting, the funding to replace the roof on the town hall, but this rain has not helped with the leaking issue, and I'm going to be seeking some help through our insurance to help recover the damage in the 2 bathrooms that it's impacted. Today I met with Lucy Allen from the Historical Commission, And so since Lester passed, she's been trying really hard to kind of pick up where he left off and understand where he left off. So her and I had a really good conversation because the Historical Commission is appointed by the Select Board and is really crucial for the town as far as, town property goes, what we can do with town property. We had conversations about the Barre Plains Commons, potentially what we can do there. And then I also, had conversations about some of the plans that we have for like this building. If we do choose to replace the windows, that is something that we would have to get approval from the Historical Commission about. And I had a brief conversation about replacing the roof. I don't know if that's something we need to have a conversation with them, approval from them, but there's asphalt up there already, so I don't think there's gonna be too much of an issue about us replacing with the asphalt. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that a little bit earlier in the meeting when we were talking about the agreement with Lester, I mentioned emergency management planning. That's something that I really want to focus on over the next year or two. I found when I was trying to do a little bit of cleaning in my office, the emergency management plan that I think is the only one in existence for this town, and it was published in March of 1998. So
We're ready.
Things have changed. Things have drastically changed since then, and I think it would be really, really important for us to focus on having an emergency management plan for going forward, for a variety of issues, a lot of them related to weather. Weather is a huge issue, school shootings, and other things that in 1998 may not have been as big of an issue, but we have to worry about in 2021. So that's going to be something that I want to focus a lot on, is developing a good emergency management team, developing a plan, and then practicing what we put in that plan. So Chief Carbone and I had talked recently about an active shooter drill in the near future with there's a new principal up at Ruggles Lane. So we just came up in conversation, so that's kind of what spiraled this thought.
Well, even an active shooter drill in the municipal buildings.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
it's crazy out
Again,
there.
it's something that we
Crazy.
didn't, you would have never thought that we would need
No.
it, but Virginia Beach just had one a couple of years ago, so
Yeah.
it's a very
Scary time.
real issue. So that's about all I have for
Gee, is that all?
I mean, if you guys have questions, I could.
I do.
Okay.
One of the things that most impressed me when we first hired you was this young girl that said these words, "I can't wait to do a master plan."
Oh, yeah, that's a great question.
And I said, "Really?" Well, let's see. So have you, I understand you haven't had a minute because of other stuff, but I just want to put that thought out there. And I had a conversation with Matt Urban. That, he kind of would like to talk with you too and see about
Oh, yeah.
which office wants to take the lead in the plan, if we want them to take the lead in developing a plan, or you want to take the lead and work with them for that master plan. But
Yeah.
start
Great.
picking apart and maybe pick a section to start working on, and maybe even just an outline of what we want involved in that plan, the different, maybe 7 big topics you want to hit and start on one. But
Is that something where
Right.
Central Mass Regional Planning works with us, or do we try to do it on our own?
Right, so there's a lot of options for us. My original goal was to do to get an MVP grant for that. I had missed the deadline to apply for it because I just thought it was a month later than that actual date was. But there's still opportunities to apply for grants for a plan like this. Another option is we could do CMRPC. It would be a lot cheaper to do it through CMRPC versus getting a grant to do a very expensive, to hire a very expensive firm.
right,
that
and
would
you can do a
really-
PCA with
Yeah.
CMRPC and not
Yeah.
go after the whole thing. It's not going to be a
Yeah.
6-month project. This is going to be.
Yeah, no, it would take probably a year to do, and that would be, I'm just
I
getting
would be
through-
impressed if you did that in a year.
I think you can do it in 3 years.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
if
You're
you were
talking
to
about
do
to do a comprehensive.
Right, so like I'm just getting finished doing one in my hometown, and that took us a year, but we also had a very expensive firm that did it for us.
How much did that cost?
I want to say about 100K. And and I think there was a match from the town too, so it might have been a little bit more than that. But it took us a year, and it was a lot of very long meetings. But I think, it was the most thorough way to do it. I wouldn't recommend the town do it by themselves. I definitely think, I think having a consultant is really helpful just because you get a third-party perspective that can be like, okay, we can see the big picture here, and like make everybody's ideas make sense, because a master plan committee has a lot of members. So getting all of those ideas into a cohesive book can be
See, now
a big
if we,
challenge.
now if we could use some of that aid, whatever money.
That's what I was just gonna say,
Right.
That would
if
be
we find out we could
important.
free up some of it, that's,
Yeah.
if you had half and grant half, and you'd spend
yeah.
50,000 out of that and get 50 in a grant, then suddenly
Absolutely.
it's done.
Yeah.
And that's a meaningful change we're
Well,
talking about for
because-
the town.
Yeah,
But when we talked about, once again, back to the bylaws, I tabled those at town meeting because I wasn't happy with how they were, and I didn't want to have them voted down.
I agree.
I wanted them to stay open because I think there's some validity to a lot of those things. They just need to be, I
Well,
didn't
the
like how
public-
they were.
Well, the public didn't understand it anyway.
And I think they were too restrictive but I think there's use for that type of development, but that's the kind of thing we need the master plan, sort of needs, but before that kind of thing, before we start developing those bylaws to change how we build, we need that master plan to start and maybe focus on development as the first part of it. But that's why I ask about it. Those things all have to tie together. I'd like to see that article come back, but hopefully not till we start to discuss between our office and the planning board what a master plan might look like.
Definitely. It's definitely still something that is a big goal of mine, for sure.
Right.
Well, you've got a lot of big goals.
They say not to have more than 3 big goals in 1 year.
Okay, then.
So I have 2.
So we gotta come up with a third, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Jessica, on a smaller topic, what's the latest with the Cork Walker signs?
Yeah, great question that we talked about today. Lucy Allen, like I said, she's still trying to gather her bearings at the Historical Commission, so she doesn't have much of an update there for us.
The what
But
signs?
The Cork Walker sign.
I think.
Yes, so
Cork,
they're
right?
historical, they have historical significance in the town that has to do with the ending of slavery
Okay.
in Massachusetts.
Yep.
So,
I thought he said cork. That's why I didn't understand.
Quark.
My-
Cork? I was thought it was
Cork.
Quark growing up.
It's
I never
cork,
knew it
it's
was
Q-U.
Q-U-O-C-K.
yeah, so that conversation definitely came up today, and she's definitely interested in still pursuing it. She's just trying to find all of the pieces where Lester left off.
And she will find them.
She will find them. She will.
Lucy will find them.
She
She
was
has
on
more,
top of her stuff.
she has more tenacity than most, I would tell you.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. She will find them.
And that's all.
Anybody else? Stan, do you have anything you want to throw in there?
I don't.
Sure.
You sure, I'll look for the appropriate motion then.
Seeing the business is completed, I would move, we adjourn.
I will second the motion to adjourn.
Motion is second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing
is the
none,
only
I'll
one
call
you
for
need
vote.
to
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.